It is 11:08 on April 16th of 2024, and the State and Local Government and Veterans Committee will come to order. First item on our agenda today is Senate File 4354 with Senator Port. And Senator Port, please begin at your convenience.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Madam Chair, I have the A2 amendment, which is the delete all, to put the correct bill in front of us.
Members, Senator, would you care to explain the delete everything amendment first, and then we will proceed on this?
Sure. The delete everything puts in front of you the language that was formerly in one of the zoning bills. This is pretty simply a bill to allow for multifamily by right in commercial districts. And it allows for requirement of getting a reply on the permit within 60 days. And it also has an allowance for cities to decide if they want to require that residential buildings built in commercial areas must have a first floor that remains commercial.
Thank you, Senator. We now have a quorum, and Senator Morrison offers the A2 amendment, is what you're asking to get it in order?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Members, all in favor of the A2 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment prevails. Can we go to your testifiers?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I can, I also have an A5, which is a technical amendment, a technical and clarifying amendment, which I don't have in front of me.
The A5 is being handed out, and if someone could also get it to Senator Port, that would be wonderful.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to explain this one if you'd like.
Senator Port, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The lines 1.3 and 1.4 just clarify that the building permits required within 60 days are just for residential buildings, not for other types of buildings. And lines 1.5 through 1.8 clarify the definition of health, safety, and general welfare, which is cited in the bill. And then 1.9 is a delayed implementation date, moving it from January to June of 2025.
Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Fate moves the Senator Fate moves the A5 amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Senator Port, is this now in the order that you were asking for?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
We will proceed to questions and any other amendments a little later, but let's get to the testifiers first, if that's okay.
Sure.
First on the list, Ms. Larson, if you could come down, and Mr. Lightfoot, if you could also please come down and be on deck.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Larson, please state your name and affiliation for the record and proceed.
Sure. My name is Sarah Larson, Principal Landing Group. As an affordable housing consultant, we have been involved in the development or rehab of nearly 7,000 affordable housing units. Here's a development story. In 2021, a developer proposed a market rate rental building in the suburb. It complied with the comprehensive plan. At one of the multiple required public meetings, council members said things like, "I love this, infinitely better use of land." No city residents attended the meeting. In 2022, the developer went back to council with the same concept, but 100% affordable units with homeless households. The council said, "Why so tall? Why not for sale townhomes?" But we do need more affordable housing. In December 2023, we have obtained federal tax credits and state resources, a portion which this body allocated last year. In February, the developer went back to council as required. In response to feedback, they had changed the design to be shorter and half the density. The council chambers were standing room only. Neighbors in opposition had been crowdsourcing funding to support their efforts. The result? Not a single council member said they were willing to support the development moving forward at the time. The developer has now returned $25 million in public funding and has no plans to build the 85 units. This is not a unique story. I can think of several projects that only happened after costly and lengthy organizing and legal efforts. It shouldn't be this way. Council should do the right thing, but when push comes to shove, the pressure proves too great. This proposed legislation will not shut out the local government. This legislation will ensure the goalpost doesn't move. This will allow affordable housing to be built everywhere because it's needed everywhere.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Larson. If Mr. Williams could come down and be on deck, and Mr. Lightfoot, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning. I'm sorry, it's still 11:15. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Daniel Lightfoot with the League of Minnesota Cities. The League represents the collective interests of 838 member cities across the state of Minnesota, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify today on this bill. I want to first and foremost thank Chair Port for the numerous conversations that she has had with the League and a number of our member cities and city officials, as well as the work and time that Chair Port, you, Madam Chair, Senator Pah, and others have committed to in addressing city concerns with this language and reflecting those concerns in subsequent versions of the language. Senate File 4254 as amended reflects most of the House language. That includes several important changes that reflect conversations with the League, and we appreciate Chair Port for working with us to include those suggestions to make the language more workable for cities. Those changes include modification of the height requirements in the bill that could have resulted in absurdly tall buildings, removal of an unnecessary administrative design process, the review process, the ability for cities to establish official controls to require commercial presence in multifamily residential developments built under this section, as well as a limitation of the parking requirements to units constructed under the section and only those within a quarter-mile radius of a major transit stop. These are really important changes that will help cities create a balance in their property tax base, prevent the underbuilding of parking, resulting in overflow onto city streets that can't support it. And of course, we appreciate the A5 amendment that extends the effective date to allow more time for cities to update their zoning and land use ordinances. A couple of things that we want to continue to work on that are not reflected in this language currently. First and foremost, sections 1 and 2, while we do appreciate the amendment that limited the building permits for only residential units to be included under 1599 or the 60-day rule. This is still incredibly problematic for cities and could result in building permits being automatically issued without adequate review and inspection for code compliance, given that Minnesota 1599 has what's called a deemed granted remedy, which means if a city doesn't act on it or deny it within 60 days, it's automatically approved. This is a serious safety issue and would also probably result in a higher uptick in denials of permits as cities work to avoid getting caught up in a situation where a building permit could be automatically granted. We would like to reflect the House language as well in this bill to allow the ability for cities to utilize a conditional use permit in cases of public health, safety, and welfare. This is an incredibly important piece of this, and the House language is a bit cleaner on this topic. And lastly, we do really appreciate the the section 3 that allows cities to preserve commercial property in residential developments. But the language in paragraph D, lines 3.18 to 3.19, are not in the House bill and are is extremely problematic. The language prohibits those official controls in subdivision 2 from any property that is going into a blighted area. The cross-reference of that definition is extremely broad and would prohibit a city from controlling redevelopment in crucial commercial properties that are blighted. That said, while this legislation does usurp a local decision-making authority, we do really appreciate the changes that have been made, and we appreciate the work that has gone on in the House with the League and the work that Chair Port and others have done in the Senate as well, and we look forward to continuing to work on this language. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. If Ms. McDonald could please come and be on deck, and Mr. Williams, if you could please state your name for the record and proceed.
Paul Williams. Good morning, Vice Chair Mitchell, Chair Dziedzic, and members of the committee, and thank you, Senator Port, for your authoring of Senate File 4354. My name is Paul Williams, and I'm President and CEO of Project for Pride in Living, a nonprofit based in Minneapolis that works throughout the Twin Cities area. Prior to coming to PPL, I served as the Deputy Mayor of the City of St. Paul for 3 years and have spent the majority of my career working in housing and community development. I served on Governor Dayton's 2018 Housing Task Force and co-chaired Governor Walz's 2022 Task Force on Economic Expansion. PPL is a 52-year-old nonprofit affordable housing developer, property manager, and service provider based in the Twin Cities. We own and manage 1,600 units of affordable housing in the Twin Cities. Close to 3,500 folks live with us every night under a PPL roof, nearly half of them children. Our housing spans the core cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, as well as several suburban communities. Much of our housing is located along commercial corridors and key transit routes. Land use and zoning barriers are a significant impediment to the development of new housing in general and affordable housing in particular. Complicated processes with significant modifications that substantially reduce the number of housing units that can be developed on a given parcel while significantly driving up the cost of development. As an example, we are currently developing an affordable housing project right now in a western suburb that was originally designed for 100 units, a block and a half from a key transit corridor along the Southwest Light Rail line. After many rounds of public process, the building went from 100 units to 80 units and now is being constructed at 60 units. It'll open later this year. The project will take 6 full years to build, and the estimated cost increase due to those project challenges and delays is expected to total $6 million. And guess where we came back for that $6 million? Directly back to the state, directly back to the county, directly back to local government to fill that gap that was caused by that delay in construction. You will see that same pattern, not just with affordable housing, but with higher density private market rate development. And so it is a problem that repeats itself and has a cost to government as a whole. Senate File 4354 is designed to address these barriers, which will provide more opportunities to build more homes for more Minnesotans across the state that will, in the long run, reduce the growth in the cost of housing, provide more housing that is closer in proximity to amenities and transportations. It'll strengthen our school districts. Importantly, it also, locating housing in and around commercial districts also helps to support the vital small businesses that are so important to community life. In closing, we've been studying the housing crisis in Minnesota for over a decade. The conclusions are clear that we desperately need more homes across the state to improve affordability, to improve availability and equity within our broader housing system. Governor Walz's Council on Economic Expansion clearly confirmed that in 2022. And the 2018 Governor's Housing Study also made clear that reform of land use and zoning standards are critical components to ensure we meet that need. We appreciate this bill continuing to move forward, and while we understand the complexities that new development can create at the local level, we ask that you continue to seek ways to limit barriers to housing developments to ensure all Minnesotans have a place to call home. So I thank you and happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Williams. If Ms. Weefel, I hope I have that correct, could be on deck, and Ms. McDonald, if you can please proceed.
Chair and members, my name is Anya McDonald. I'm a government relations specialist with Metro Cities. We appreciate the work of Chair Port and other legislators to address a variety of concerns with provisions in the bill that have been raised by cities. We also appreciate the language in the A2 amendment that allows for the preservation of commercial space. Many cities have identified that preserving and increasing commercial space is important for their local economy and to fulfill various local needs. We also appreciate the narrowing of the parking limitation to only new multifamily residential developments within 1/4 mile of a major transit stop. However, we continue to have concerns with the bill and as such continue to oppose this legislation. Metro Cities policies oppose the preemption of local decision-making over land uses and zoning. These types of decisions are best decided at the local level and with consideration over existing land uses, community circumstances, and local needs. The bill ignores the role of local comprehensive plans, which all metropolitan cities have in effect, that guide development and allow cities to effectively plan for infrastructure over the long term. We would also note that the bill requires that cities approve or deny a building permit within 60 days, and the failure to deny requests within 60 days is an automatic approval. This short turnaround time will likely require cities to deny applications if something is missing or incorrect and require applicants to resubmit, which increase time and cost. Finally, some provisions in the bill appear to be contradictory. For example, that development needs to comply with existing infrastructure, but allows affordable housing developments to exceed maximum dimensional standards imposed by city officials' zoning controls. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. If Ms. Mavity could please come down and be on deck, and Ms. Weefel, if you could properly state your name for the record.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I messed it up, and proceed.
Thank you. It's okay. My name is Elizabeth Wayful. I always tell people to think about, like, if you've eaten too much, you're Wayful. Easy way to remember it. I'm here on behalf of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I want to thank you for allowing me to testify. I think, like the other testifiers, I'm going to start by thanking Senator Port for her willingness to meet with us and to learn and hear about the concerns we have with this bill, but also with all the time and energy she has really put into over the last year, understanding the challenges that Greater Minnesota faces with respect to housing. You know, on this legislation alone, we've seen a lot of important changes that reflect that, including limiting the restrictions on parking requirements, addressing concerns about the loss of commercial areas, incorporating protections for general health and welfare, and eliminating some problematic administrative review processes. Unfortunately, our members still have some concerns with the bill. And a lot of our concerns arise because we're not certain that this bill is going to do anything to fix our housing crisis, but we are really worried that the changes could make moving forward more difficult. I think you've heard us say this before, but the biggest barrier we face to building housing in Greater Minnesota is the cost. You know, the rapidly increasing cost of materials, infrastructure, financing, and labor. You know, anytime we get housing done in Greater Minnesota, it's because our cities are usually having to kick in a couple million or $2 million through waiver of fees, tax increment financing, and the such. You know, we're not seeing the zoning stop it. The inadequate finance is usually the challenge. Again, with respect to the technical aspects of the bill, again, tremendous strides have been made, and we really, really do appreciate that. I can't emphasize that enough. There are still some problems we are worried could hamper the ability to build affordable and other housing and create problems for the city as well. I think the League and Metro Cities both mentioned this, but the 60-day limitation on building permits is going to be a real challenge. You know, it's often during that time period when our cities spend time working with developers and so forth on how do we make sure that this city fits within the community. And we really are worried that sort of by putting a 60-day time frame around that, it makes it more challenging and isn't going to make housing more likely. I think at the end of the day, you know, all of us around this table, that table, all these tables, we all want to increase housing for Minnesota. So clearly important. So we just want to say we look forward to continue working with Senator Pork, others in the Senate and the House to make sure that we can get more housing, especially affordable and workforce housing for Greater Minnesota as well as the rest of the state. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And Mr. Waddell, if you could please come down, and Ms. Mavity, if you could please proceed.
Good morning. I am not Ann Mavity.
Apologies.
You did not. I'm taking her place. So I am Dr. Kimberly Wilburn, and I want to thank the chair and committee members for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm here to testify in support of the multifamily housing A2 amendment to F 4254. Every Minnesotan deserves a safe, stable, and affordable place to call home, but currently far too many are excluded. We see workers that are vital to our city's functions and economies that can't afford to live where they work. We see people in all stages of life, from college graduates who want to return to their cities, to seniors who want to downsize but still remain in their neighborhoods, to individuals and families in every stage in between that either due to lack of affordability or simply lack of supply are unable to live where they want to live. As a city council member, I've watched with frustration the application of outdated zoning laws that have root in a century-old system where the explicitly stated purpose is to exclude people of color from desirable areas. I ran on a platform of environmental protection and fighting climate change, housing, and racial equity. The A2 amendment can be one tool in the toolbox that positively addresses all of these issues. It will benefit cities and towns by decreasing the amount of time and administration needed without leading to a net loss of commercial area. It will benefit developers by streamlining the process, allowing for more predictable cost estimations and financing, and it incentivizes affordability and proximity to public transit. Notably, this amendment does not include a conditional use permitting process, which, rather than streamlining, would lead to delaying and elimination of projects. Most importantly, this amendment will benefit our friends, neighbors, and would-be neighbors by increasing housing options. Every Minnesotan deserves a safe, stable, and affordable place to call home, and we as elected representatives must do what we can to provide options for our people. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And Mr. Waddell.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jason Waddell, and I'm the city manager for the city of Prior Lake. I'm also a licensed civil engineer and the former director of land development for a national home builder here in the Twin Cities. I'm here testifying today on behalf of the 19 city members of the Municipal Legislative Commission. First, we want to thank all of you and Senator Port for the work that has been done on this bill over the past few weeks. The current bill does address many of the concerns we have raised, and we are very appreciative of the work that has been done. However, we do have a few concerns still with the bill as amended. Section 2, Subdivision 2, requiring the approval of building applications in 60 days is problematic, as it doesn't include a definition of what a complete application is. Building permits often require grading plans, surveys, stormwater plans, structural plans, sprinkler plans, landscaping plans, etc. And the majority of the time, we do not receive a complete application all at once. However, as cities, we currently start reviewing components of what has been submitted to keep projects progressing. This language will result in cities denying building permit applications or not initiating any reviews until all necessary materials are provided. This will actually slow down the approval process and add cost and not improve it. Excuse me. Section 3, Subdivision 2, we would like to ask for an exemption for cities that have greenfield areas available for multifamily housing. Amongst our 19 MLC cities, we have 3,000 acres available today for multifamily housing that would support up to 50,000 housing units. It is therefore, in our opinion, unnecessary for our existing commercial areas to be subject to this bill. Rather, this bill should only be applicable to those cities that are built out or do not have available greenfield area. The language encouraging affordable housing on areas that are blighted is unnecessary in our opinion, as cities that want to facilitate housing in their blighted areas already have the tools and mechanisms available to do so. Lastly, Section 3, Subdivision 3, the ability for affordable housing projects to exceed building height limits by 35 feet is concerning for us. This would allow for an 80-foot tall building in Prior Lake, which is nearly double what is currently allowed and would be completely out of scale with the rest of our community. In addition, our fire department is not equipped to serve buildings of that size. So our thoughts are, if development densities by right are considered to encourage affordable housing, then perhaps addressing the density through the floor area ratios or maybe a slight height increase of 10% may better achieve the objective. So thank you again, Chair and members of the committee, for the time. This bill has made a lot of progress, and we are grateful for the modifications. If you have any questions on any of the changes we are recommending, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Waddell. Senator Port, do you have any final comments before we go and open it up?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. You know, for decades, disparities in housing have continued to grow in Minnesota, not by accident, but because of specific policy decisions that we've made at all levels of government. From the days of redlining to more recent NIMBYism, keeping communities separated has been the outcome of nearly every level of housing policy. With massive disinvestments from the federal government, affordable housing has grown to be out of reach, not just for the very poor, but now for middle-class working Minnesotans. It would be easy to say, don't worry, we've got a plan for this. We hear that we just need to let the Met Council's plan for affordable housing and densification happen. And while cities all across our state have 10-year comp plans that are supposed to be addressing this exact concern, the data in the chart on your desks shows that it is not effective. We are not actually getting the level of housing that we need, particularly affordable housing. I do want to take a minute to acknowledge and thank the cities that are implementing creative solutions to our housing crisis. We're so glad that you've made this a priority and are excited to continue supporting your work. This bill does nothing to stop local problem solving. We've been meeting consistently throughout the session, and I thank the League and CGMC for their willingness to keep talking. We incorporated much feedback into this bill, as you heard through testimony, including a huge concession to allow cities to require developments to keep the first floor commercial, which was a direct request from our friends in Greater Minnesota. We entered this session with multiple bills focused on tackling exclusionary zoning to open our communities to creative housing, mixed use, affordable options for homeownership and rental. We started these conversations last summer, engaging the League, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, city planners, developers, laborers, environmental organizations, architects, nonprofit organizations, and more. We toured the state and talked to city council members and mayors who were pleading with the state to help them bring development into their communities. We passed a $1 billion housing bill to invest in everything from down payments for first-generation home buyers to infrastructure in Greater Minnesota. If we don't remove barriers to the building process, that money won't go nearly as far as it could, or build the kinds of housing that Minnesotans need. We know a single policy won't be a silver bullet for our housing crisis, but building more housing more easily is part of the solution. The lobbyists for cities and counties have been very successful in stopping most of the zoning reform bills that were introduced this year. But let me be clear, they do not speak for the majority of Minnesotans who know that housing is a critical issue and want more housing options all over the state. Our coalition of the Minnesota Housing Partnership, Isaiah, AARP, Project Pride for Living, ACER, Neighbors for More Neighbors, Move Minnesota, Sierra Club, SEIU Healthcare, Sustain St. Paul, AFL-CIO, Beacon Interfaith, and the City of St. Paul and city officials across the state will continue to work towards exclusionary zoning reform because we know this one simple fact. We need more housing in Minnesota, and exclusionary zoning practices are a barrier. I'm happy to take questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Port. And thank you for all the member groups that have come together to work on all of these issues. I also work in the child protection realm, and this is the lack of housing in Minnesota that's affordable is a big destabilizer in our housing, including impacting many of our children. So thank you for your work. Members, I would like to open it up for any questions now. Senator Dziedzic.
There I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the good discussion. And I know it's always a balance finding, not preempting cities or where cities feel that we're preempting their zoning control, and getting more housing. I have a question on line 318, 319, on the blighted area. So if Senator Port or somebody could explain that. And then I know, I believe Mr. Lightfield asked a question, and so I just want to raise concerns about this. So I was just concerned, how does this blighted language exemption cause a problem for cities? Because I would assume cities would want the blighted area fixed up. And then as a follow-up to that, how does this interact with TIF? So could cities enact a TIF district on this blighted property, or does 318 and 319 prohibit that? So that's some of my questions. Thank you.
Senator Port and Mr. Lightfoot, if you could also please step forward. Thank you. Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Dziedzic. It's a great question. This is really the portion of the bill that's left that allows for the potential of affordable housing to be built under this bill. Blighted areas are often less expensive, but also developers who work in the affordable space are not commercial landlords, and they don't have the ability to be commercial landlords. So by allowing this one particular area, just blighted properties, to be able to be 100% residential rather than requiring that first floor to be commercial, it allows for the development of affordable units in those spaces. It would simply be too expensive, and affordable housing providers are not in the business of being commercial landlords.
Thank you, Senator Port. And I don't want to try and restate someone's question, but I believe the question to you was, by using the blighted area, how would that impede a city from what they do? Hopefully I restated that correctly.
That's quite good, Madam Chair, members, and thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Dziedzic, for the question. The reference in the language is to the EDA statute, which is 469.022 sub 11, and it's pretty expansive. The definition would include any area with buildings or improvements which by reason of dilapidation, obsolescence, overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, lack of ventilation, light, sanitary facilities, excessive land coverage, deleterious land use, obsolete layout, or any combination of these or other factors would be constituted as a blighted area. And so the concern is the breadth in that statute as the cross-reference could prevent a city's ability from controlling reasonable, having reasonable official controls for the redevelopment of certain properties. There could be buildings in, for example, a greater Minnesota downtown area that could fall under this definition easily. And a city would not be able to then ensure a commercial presence in that development, in that multifamily development, even though a city may want to preserve some level of commercial presence in a new multifamily residential development in their downtown commercial district. As to the question on tax increment financing, I'm not sure anything in this bill would preclude a city from using a TIF district for that development, so long as that development met the requirements in the TIF statute, either economic development or housing TIF.
Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. Senator Port, anything further on that?
You know, Madam Chair, I'm just would be happy to say, as we have through this whole process, we're certainly willing to work on tightening up that definition, but I think the basis of it is important, and it's important that we keep something in this bill to give an opportunity for affordable housing to come out of this in our communities.
Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Dziedzic, any follow-up?
Thank you. It's good to hear that this won't impact a TIF district, because I could see a city doing, if there's a, like a fire on, several blocks, that several of the buildings have to be torn down, and for them to do a TIF district to help fix up the entire several blocks, but then still allow for the nonprofits to come in and do some additional housing, because we just need more housing. So I would encourage, and I know Senator Port has been working on housing for at least 5 years and is well aware of all the issues out there. And so I would encourage, if it's the league has issues with the blighted language, can we maybe narrow that down to somehow figure that out to make this work. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Senator Dziedzic. Senator Drazkowski.
I'll pass, Madam Chair. I got to collect my thoughts here.
Senator Cwodzinski.
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you, Senator Port. I know you've been doing a lot of work on housing. I obviously have some concerns. I was a city council mayor for 8 years, and taking away local control is a huge concern of mine. I have a lot of different issues that would be a concern. First of what I hear in my district, and I haven't heard anybody having complaints in my district about this. I mean, Faribault and Owatonna are two large cities in my district. They're having phenomenal housing programs going on right now. They're building multifamily in several different areas, several different cities, or areas of the city. They're doing them very successfully. So I have not got a concern by any of my cities for this. So I would obviously have some concern about that. You know, I think we should actually be working on home ownership versus rentals. It's the biggest equity builder you'll ever get is home ownership. So that's the way I would like to see things. But again, because I haven't heard concern from my areas, and I think it's more of a metro area, so I'd like to offer the A8 amendment.
Senator Dziedzic offers the A8 amendment. If that could please be distributed, including a copy to Senator Port so that she has a chance to respond.
And Madam Chair, while that's being distributed, I can pretty easily explain it. This would apply only to the 7-county metro area. So again, we're not hearing anything, and we can ask from some of our other senators across the state, but I'm not hearing anything from rural Minnesota about issues with what you're going through. I understand it's an issue here, but I just think we need to keep rural Minnesota. If they're operating efficiently now, not having issues, why bring them into this? This is something that I think only applies here. So with that, I'd ask for your support. I didn't get time to talk to you about it because it just came up while the discussion was going on. But again, nobody that I'm hearing from in rural Minnesota is having issues with this. Every city is doing ordinances, or doing TIF districts, or doing all kinds of different plans to address the housing issue. But the housing issue is more of a cost issue. It's not a zoning issue in rural Minnesota. And so the cost issue I totally get. If there's a way we can do that, I think I'm on a couple bills for cities to get some funding for grants to promote rural housing and reduce the cost of infrastructure, but zoning is not an issue that's coming up anywhere, and I'll maybe refer to some of my other senators here, but I'm not hearing it that's an issue in rural Minnesota. So with that, I ask for your support. You could test it out in the metro area, and if it succeeds, then maybe look at the rural Minnesota area if there's complaints, but I'm not hearing any complaints about this in rural Minnesota. So I'd ask for your support on the A8. Thank you, and I'd ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. Owatonna was part of our tour of southern Minnesota when we went and did it, checked in with a bunch of communities, and they are doing incredibly creative things. They really are engaged in trying to figure out how to do this, and because of that have been successful at bringing some development to their communities, which has not unfortunately been the case across greater Minnesota. We have a lot of communities that are really struggling to get developers to come to them. And we've looked at a lot of different ways to address that. The Greater Minnesota Infrastructure Grant Program that we started last year, I think will be one of the most popular programs. I think it needs to drastically increase in size because we know it's a huge expense for communities to have to put that infrastructure in order to grow. At this point, I'm going to ask for a no on the amendment, and the reason why is as we were making that tour, we stopped in other cities as well, including St. Peter, Worthington, Windham, Rochester, a whole bunch in northern Minnesota, and at almost every one of them, we talked about barriers to building more housing. And it didn't always look the same in all of them. For some of them, it was that they had very large or very vocal members of their community who would show up for anything and, rail against it at community meetings, even when the city council was sort of agreed on a plan forward. There was this NIMBY factor that would come in. In some of them, it was they had zoning laws that were 50, 60 years old, and they didn't have the the staff ability or the technical assistance to be able to redo those. So they were sort of stuck in zoning bills that had been done 50 or 60 years before. I think you're completely right. The biggest thing we could do for housing in Minnesota is to build a lot of single-family homes and get people into homeownership. Unfortunately, the bill that Senator Mitchell carried this year to allow to do just that is not moving forward as part of this process has had to be dropped. And this is the very last piece that we have to take one aspect, just one aspect for allowing multifamily to be built in commercial zones. And actually part of this bill, particularly allowing commerce to continue to exist or commercial to continue to exist on the bottom floor, was directly in conversations with greater Minnesota towns who have empty storefronts up and down Main Street. They want to be able to maintain that base floor for commercial, but no one's coming there. There's no business there. And some of the folks that we talked to in cities across greater Minnesota said, well, if someone would come in and build housing and we could revitalize our downtown, that would give us an option. I by no means think this is a silver bullet that is going to solve housing across the state. I am completely aware of that. But it is one step that we can take. It is one step that will remove barriers. It is one step to get us closer to closing the 100,000 unit gap that we have between our housing now and our housing need. And I think it's a need that we see statewide. It might look different in every community, and certainly the development will look different in every community. But I think it's something that could help every community. And for that reason, I'll ask for a no vote.
Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Fateh.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Port. Would this apply to also condos as well as rentals?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Fateh. Yes, it is multifamily development. It does not specify what kind it would be.
Seeing no further discussion on the A8 amendment, a roll call has been requested. Please take the roll.
Chair Mitchell.
No.
Chair Dziedzic.
No.
Senator Anderson.
Yes.
Senator Barr.
Aye.
Senator Carlson.
No.
Senator Cwodzinski.
Nope.
Senator Dziedzic.
Aye.
Senator Fateh.
No.
Senator Gustafson.
No.
Senator Dziedzic.
Aye.
Senator Curran.
Aye.
Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator May Quaid. Senator Morrison.
No.
There being 6 yes votes and 7 no votes, the motion does not prevail. Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Senator Port. We continue to see efforts in this legislature believing that state government is going to come and somehow solve the need for housing, which many of us believe that actually government has created the problem. And obviously, you believe that state government can come in and save the day. I don't see it that way, and I see problems with your bill. Lines 3.7 through 3.10, preempts local control, and we've been talking about that. Are you concerned at all if you did this, if this passed into law, that, you'd have little kids getting run over with a forklift or a cement truck?
Senator Port.
Madam Chair, Senator Dziedzic, no.
Madam Chair.
Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Port, well, safety is one of the reasons, certainly, that local governments decide to, separate out commercial areas from residential areas. And I think that's an important thing to consider as we move forward. I think the wisdom there in that community is much better than some centralized idea of what should be coming from and emanating from St. Paul. if indeed the need is that there's too much space being occupied by the commercial district, I missed part of the earlier discussion as to why this bill is here, but I'm guessing that advocates are saying, well, there's too much space being used by the commercial district, zone district over there, you know, and we need to be able to build there. If that's the case, does the local municipality have the ability to resize the zoning district or to rezone it generally or portions of it?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski. Nothing in this bill prohibits cities from changing their zoning.
Senator Drazkowski.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, maybe I'm not reading the bill properly, Senator Port, and be glad to talk to you more about it. But it just appears we're trying to have state government to come in and control local government. And I do believe in local control, but that doesn't necessarily always mean the most local government control either. And as a matter of fact, Senator Port, you talked about people coming to local city council meetings and speaking up. That local control, the control of the people, is the most local and the most important in my mind. And I don't think we should overlook that, or you know, or the local city or county control. And I know this affects cities, but for us to believe, and this isn't specific to this bill, but why is this legislature so arrogant to believe that state government has to come in and prescribe again to our communities in the state that this is how you can operate? I do believe that people locally, and the most local as well as local governments, have more wisdom for their particular area than we do here, and I think this is a mistake. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Thank
if I
you.
may.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Drazkowski. A couple of things I want to point out. On lines 3.20 to 3.23, there is allowances for health, safety, and general welfare to continue to be relevant. And I think one thing I want to point out is this bill does not say that St. Paul or legislators in St. Paul are going to come build buildings in your community. This still requires developers or landowners to choose to build residential multifamily units in your communities. This doesn't mean that they're going to. This doesn't require them to. This actually gives, by right, the freedom to landowners to say, I want to build multifamily here, I'm allowed to, and I don't have to go through 19 variances before I get to do that. It gives the opportunity for the person who is building the development to decide what they want to build. And frankly, how that's decided in this country is based on capitalism. Developers are not going to build tin sheds next to a forklift factory and try to sell it to multifamily buyers because it would never sell. They're going to build the kind of housing that our communities need, and this gives them the freedom to do that without having to go through 19 different layers. If they present a proposal that meets the zoning requirements, the land use requirements, that has all the safety requirements, that if you'll look on page 5.5 through 5.7, meets fire code and building code. If they are doing all of that, then they get to build their building. That's all that this says, and still only in sort of commercial zones, which the reason for that is because people want to live near where commerce is. Multifamily units want to live near the grocery store. They want to be near the Target, near downtown. It's more popular for them to do that. It also is greener for less traffic, less driving, people to be able to move around their communities more safely.
Thank you, Senator Port. I would like to offer the A6 amendment. While that is being passed out,
Madam Chair.
including to the author,
Madam Chair,
Senator Drazkowski.
Point of order, should the chair be offering an amendment That's not normal parliamentary procedure where I come from.
Senator Fateh, do you want to move this, the A6 amendment?
I'll need time to consider, Madam Chair. Yes.
Thank you for that quick consideration. Senator Fateh offers the A6 amendment. Senator Fateh, are you able to describe it?
I'll need council's help on this one, Madam Chair.
I will assist if that's okay. The A6 amendment expands the ability of affordable units where incomes do not exceed 60% of the area's median income, so that under this project, if it is affordable that is going to be built, which is definitely a need, that there would be more flexibility to build that within the framework of this bill. Senator Port, do you have any comment to the A6 amendment offered by Senator Fateh?
Yes, Madam Chair and Senator Fateh. Taking a look at this amendment, it looks like it expands the exemption that right now we have for blighted properties to not require that base floor to be commercial if 100% of the units are 60% AMI or under. Looking at the chart that I had passed out to all of you, 60% AMI and under affordable housing is the housing we need most in Minnesota, and it is the housing that is hardest to build. Senator Mitchell, I think this is a great amendment. I would accept it as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Senator Port. Seeing no further comment, all in favor of the A6 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
No.
The amendment passes. Is there any further discussion? Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Port, on the, I think everybody's talked about, we haven't heard a need, and I think your description of rural Minnesota that you ran into districts that had 30 or 40-year-old zoning laws. That's all able to be resolved within our own local community. I don't believe anybody's without resources to do those things. It's what we do every day. On the on your this one question within the bill on sorry, I have the wrong page. Subdivision 5, where you go and talk about the affordability restrictive covenants, right? That you must maintain that affordability for 30 years. And it doesn't contain anything else except in the descriptions of what affordability means, right? Keeping it under the median income. How would one do that in Minnesota with the regulatory burdens that are being placed on Department of Labor and Industry, the cost to build, cost to maintain, the tenant rights issues that discourage people from owning rental units and keeping them affordable? How would one do that? And if one is not able to do that, what's the remedy for it?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Curran. I'm not an affordable housing nonprofit. I don't know the specifics of the ins and outs of how their businesses work, but we have affordable nonprofits all over the state who do this every day. This is their entire reason for their nonprofits, is to run and create affordable housing units that often the state invests in to help keep running. We are currently having this conversation as part of our budget in housing, that it's essentially a continued investment that states make, cities make, the private sector makes to ensure that these units are able to stay affordable.
Madam Chair.
Senator Curran.
Senator Port, so help me out on those, because really what you're doing is encouraging the nonprofit industry to own this market, and this is more incentives for it, and or completely government subsidized or continually subsidized.
Do most of those nonprofits, as they establish those opportunities, are those tax-paying entities in that commercial space which now be mandated? Property tax, not, got to clarify.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Curran. It really depends on the organization. It depends on the type of permit that they get, the type of building that they're building. They are all done in lots of different ways. But I will point out that, yes, you're right, that this does incentivize the building of affordable units. That is very true. That is the hope, that it will incentivize that, because the need for affordable units is the greatest need we have in Minnesota. We need 20,000 more units built at 30% AMI or less, and we've built 706 in the last 5 years. We have to incentivize this somewhere. Those people literally have nowhere else to go. As we were traveling around the state, particularly in greater Minnesota, I'm quite familiar with the nonprofits that work with our homeless populations here in the Twin Cities, but really didn't understand what that looked like in greater Minnesota. And often what it looks like is the stories that we heard in my committee this year with a mother who brought her 5 children. She lived in the car with them for 6 months because there was no housing available, and she needed to keep her job. She needed to keep those kids going to school, so her and 5 children lived in a car. I wish that was like once in a needle in a haystack story, but it's not. When we were up in Roseau talking to the number of people who work there in Dziedzic, at Polaris, at all of these great Minnesota businesses who all want to expand, who are living in RVs or cars, who are in apartments, or not in apartments, in hotels for long periods of time, whose families live 200 or 300 miles away. We need this housing desperately. And so, yes, there is an incentive to affordable housing because we need it most desperately, but it's also, doing it by right greatly reduces the cost, reduces the time, as Mr. Williams said, which increases the cost, and will hopefully incentivize any building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, in Senator Port, we do share those things. We all have those employers in every one of our districts, and so we've had tremendous growth in all of my areas in the market rate affordable housing. It hasn't been impactful on the workforce yet, and some of our businesses they're buying up, unfortunately, the nursing homes and providing that housing today. I do understand it, but the lack of focus on ownership. And again, the burdens that are placed upon, there are many homeowners because of the cost of living in this state that are in the very same situation, that the elderly, they can't get out of their homes because they can't move into anywhere that's affordable, that it doesn't cost them $100,000, $200,000 more for less. And so the rest of the regulatory burden between unleashing of Dolly and the tenants' rights and all of those things are just discouraging to private property owners. And that's problematic. And so we want to build the affordable, but government is the majority of the problem, and that's the biggest challenge that I have here. So that's it, the last of my statements. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Port.
Thank you, Senator Curran. Senator Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I'm reading through the bill, I stumbled across something that I just had a question. You could probably answer it for me. So this does not apply to cities of the 4th class. It's got, what applies to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd for height-wise. What's a city of the 4th class? I was sitting here looking up, maybe council can answer that question easier, but I'm just trying to get, who does it not apply to if it doesn't apply to the cities of the 4th class?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will let Ms. White take
Ms.
this so I don't get it wrong.
Madam Chair and Senator, it has to do with a certain population, which I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Madam Chair, below 10,000.
Thank you, Senator.
I was a mayor, below 10,000.
Senator Dziedzic says it's below 10,000.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. I say seen, and all these hands shoot up. Senator Cwodzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Port. Again, I just going back to my comment on rural Minnesota. Again, you mentioned Otana did a great job. Otana City planner called me and said this is a bad bill. So if one city can do it under local control, other cities can update their plans and do those things to make that happen. And that may take a little bit longer time, but each, again, taking away local control. And if you said one city like the city of Otana did it, they can do it. And they're the ones calling me saying this is bad. Why can't other cities, I mean, through education, League of Minnesota Cities, Coalition Greater Minnesota Cities, they can educate on zoning plans that can have this happen versus taking that local control away. And that's my concern. Again, you're taking local control away. Each city is up to their leadership to go through those processes and come up with plans that can adapt their local cities, because every city in this state is different. Roseau is different than Faribault, Otana is different than Waseca in my district, and each individual city have elected people to get that job done. And if they don't do their job, then they elect people that can. But we're taking local control away here, and that's my concern. Statewide zoning is not a good thing. It should be local. Every city, like I said, has different things. City of Faribault has the second most largest number of historic buildings outside St. Paul. So it's very unique. And at one time when we were looking at housing shortages, we converted some buildings downtown into those. And we had huge issues with that. You know, right now in the prison system, like the city of Faribault, Rice County, had to build a new prison because there wasn't enough recreational space for the inmates. Okay? So in Faribault, when they first doing these buildings that were empty, they wanted to reuse them, and they brought a lot of refugee families in that had many children. And they're out playing kickball in the streets between cars and between businesses, bouncing off cars. It's not good. You're taking zoning away in a statewide thing. Give the cities the local control to change the zoning to adapt to their own city on how they can come up with ideas to promote the growth of multifamily. I just think it's going to cause huge issues, or maybe delay the implementation in rural Minnesota by 2 years or something. But Minnesota and rural Minnesota can adapt these plans. They can be educated through the League of Minnesota Cities on how to come up with comprehensive plans to address the issues. It's not zoning. It's financial. Interest rates are high. Developers are not incentivized because rates are high right now, so things go down. It's a natural cycle that, you know, that just happens. That's the market. And to change the market through government control, and especially statewide control versus local control, I think is a huge mistake. So I'm going to vote against this bill, because taking this local control away for something like this that's not a zoning issue, it's a financial issue. It's the cost of doing business. It's the cost. I mean, cities are now providing have to pay paid family leave and all these other things that are increasing their costs. That's why costs are going up across the state. It's not a zoning issue that's creating this issue. It's a financial issue. Thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. First of all, I want to say this is not a statewide zoning bill. This doesn't change or dictate how your city is zoned in any way, shape, or form. You still have residential areas, you still have commercial areas. It allows you to do all of that. The one thing that this bill allows for is for multifamily units to be built in commercial districts, which is where many of them are built anyway, without having to go through variance processes. Like, they're allowed, just like if you said, I'm going to build, you know, a Target here, I'm going to build an apartment here, they're both allowed as long as they follow all of the other requirements. This does not change anyone's zoning areas. It doesn't require them to change those areas. It doesn't restrict them from changing those areas. That is the one thing it does. And I completely agree with you, Senator Dziedzic, that every community is different. And this bill is not going to make the same things happen in different communities. It is still only going to allow for the kind of development that fits a community to happen, because developers aren't going to suddenly show up in Wyndham and say, I want to build a skyscraper here for multifamily. Like, that's just never going to happen. It's going to still be development that fits the community's needs, and it is going to lower prices because, as the testifiers who were here said repeatedly, the delays that happen through the current zoning process, needing to come back and come back and come back, took 6 months, took 10 months, took 6 years, drastically increasing the price of the development. Removing those barriers will bring down costs.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Port.
Just
Senator
one follow-up.
Dziedzic.
But right now, you use the example Roseau. So Roseau could make the decision to change their zoning to allow for this in a commercial zoning district, and then they would have the control. With this law, they can't say no. It has to go through. So again, if the city of Roseau has a housing issue and they want to use their downtown commercial area, they can vote to change their local zoning to allow for this. And now this is taking that away. So, again, if the city of Roseau has a housing crisis and they would like to do what Otana did or Faribault did, they basically go through a 30-day period to change, or 2 hearings, you go through it, they could change that and allow local control. With this bill, they can't change that. So why not give that to the cities and educate them, hey, city of Roseau, you have a housing issue, you could change your housing zoning like the city of Otana did, and you could alleviate the situation without doing a statewide mandate. And that's, again, why I say we need to let local control do it. And if the city of Roseau is having housing issues, then let the city of Roseau change their zoning ordinance to allow for what you're asking for this. And again, you're taking that away. It's a mandate to take that away. And if the cities want to do it, they should be able to do it on their own. Thank you.
Madam Chair and
Thank you,
Senator
Senator Port.
Dziedzic, frankly, because they're not. The Met Council plan and comp plans have been around for years, trying to address this exact thing, decades and decades and decades. And we have made almost no progress. And we heard from the first testifier who was here that we do build luxury multifamily apartments. You can look all over the metro. They're popping up everywhere. But we're not building affordable units. We're not building senior housing that those seniors can move into. We're not building anything at this point, frankly, across the spectrum that's not very high cost. And that is for several reasons. One, because everything's expensive right now, right? Interest rates are high, lumber is high, labor is high. The demand is so high that it drives costs up. But also because the process makes it more expensive. The delays in the process make it more expensive. $6 million we heard that they're coming back to the state to try to fill that gap that just was simply because of delays in the process through the zoning process. In Minnesota, on average, one night in Minnesota, we have over 8,000 Minnesotans on the streets who have no place to go. The status quo isn't working. I wish it was. I wish that comp plans and housing goals were working, but they're not. And we invested $1 billion last year, $1 billion, which is more than we've invested for the last 10 years combined into housing. And I'm worried that that money is going to sit there. I'm worried it's going to take too long to get out to communities because they're going to keep running into exactly these problems. 2/3 of that money that we put out there last year was for homeownership and development. And I'm worried that these kinds of barriers that aren't accidents, they are decisions that have been made over decades and decades and decades to control what kind of development comes into communities, to control who gets to come and live in what communities. And that has raised the price of housing. It has decreased the kind of creative housing we get. I understand being concerned about this. I understand local control. I understand wanting to trust that the system we have will work the way it's supposed to. But it is working the way it's supposed to. It's working the way it was built. Exclusionary zoning policies exist for a reason. They keep out affordable housing. They keep out multifamily housing. They keep out housing for communities of color. It is modern day redlining. It's how it's used all across our state. And this is a small bill. This is a tiny piece of what I was hoping the conversation that we would have on zoning would be this year. Senator Mitchell, I know you've worked incredibly hard on this as well. It's one piece, but I think it's worth continuing the conversation as we move forward.
Thank you, Senator Port. If I can just piggyback, and then we're going to go to Senator Gustafson. I will say, I know one of my counties, Washington County, which is one of the most populous, they don't even have a county homeless shelter, despite a tremendous need, because they have gone to city after city that has basically zoned them out. So what they do with homeless people now in a large county is give them a voucher and say, go to St. Paul, go to another county, go to a city outside of our county, because of the zoning issues within the entire county not allowing there to be a homeless shelter. And that's something we've been working on really hard. So I appreciate you trying to think outside the box on these issues. Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say, first of all, that nobody advocates more for housing than Senator Port. She's amazing. What she did last year was historic. It's changing lives. I admire you. I think what you're doing is great. Senator Mitchell, same. I know that this is an important issue for you as well. I find myself in a tough spot. My cities are very much opposed to this bill, very much opposed to it. And
Mine
I've worked
too.
with, and I have, well, we have a little bit different districts, but that's good to know. I've worked hard with them as well. So this isn't me just saying, I will only listen to this group and I will only listen to this group. I really do my best to try to listen to all voices. I sort of pride myself in that, and I hope I'm doing a good job. One of the things, and there were a few things in there, but one of the things that they talked about, and I wrote some of the things down that especially came from White Bear Lake, which White Bear Lake I feel like is sort of a perfect example of what this bill is. That we have a very historic downtown. We don't have a lot of private land anymore, so home ownership is difficult. Apartment buildings are going up like crazy. I know what you're saying about affordable housing. We also have quite a bit of affordable housing in my district as well, so I have seen the impact that that could bring, and it's a good thing for communities. So that's all really good. But I know, especially with White Bear, there was some concerns, and they were sort of specific, but I would imagine that maybe there are other people at this table or, just in the legislature too, who represent districts that are sort of like this too. We just put up a brand new high school in White Bear Lake, and it took a considerable, it's not even done yet. It's a considerable amount of renovations and work. One of the things that they were very concerned about is the 60-day time limit. And I know that you just recently adjusted it to only like industry areas, and I think that's great, but it still doesn't really address the workforce issue. White Bear Lake does not have a plethora of building inspectors. So even if you just narrowed it down to, only housing or only industrial, it's still just the same amount of people that we have available to us to be able to do the work. And so we don't have that. The 60, if you think about like the White Bear Lake school renovations too, it was dozens of building permits. And you have to worry, especially with the school. I mean, if you cut any of those short or speed it up because you now have a log of permits that you have to go through, you don't want any of those life or safety measures compromised, especially well, anywhere really, but a school is where we have quite a few of our vulnerable people in our district. So, and in addition to placing time on the issuing building permits, it's going to increase the amount of building inspectors that we have, and we just don't. We don't have that. Also, and I know I'm not unique in this because I've heard people say local control about 100 times today, but I tend to agree with that philosophy on issues like this, because I have 9 cities in my district. All of them are very different, and they all take pride in their own thing. Everyone's got their own thing. And White Bear Lake's thing is that we have a really interesting layout of a city. We have a really cool downtown. We have a big lake, White Bear Lake, in the middle of it. We do some pretty fun things in the summer. People should stop by. It's a great town. They don't want any of this messed with. They worked so hard on making sure that they are bringing in. We just put up, I think it was 3 or 4 new apartment buildings in just the past year. And I know that they are desperately looking for ways to increase that housing. Is it affordable? I don't know. I know some of it is and some of it isn't. So that is absolutely a problem I want to tackle. I just want to say all of this because I'm about to offer the A7 amendment, and I want like everyone here to realize that it does 2 things. One, it would exempt the 60-day automatic. Yes, right? If there's the 60 days and that expires, then it's automatically approved. It removes that just because of the constraints that cities, medium-sized cities are under. And then the other one, it would remove the exemption it would remove the exemption, I want to make sure I say this correctly. It would remove the exemption for local control on the blighted areas. And just because what might be defined as that could be sort of an issue in an area that's sort of historic, like White Bear Lake. And I don't mean this to just be White Bear Lake, but other cities in my district feel sort of the same way, even though their cities might look a little different. Madam Chair, I do have to offer an oral amendment, though, because one of the other concerns I had was already addressed by Senator Port, and that is to extend the timeline in my pile of papers here, I believe, to June 2025. So that part needs to be stricken from the amendment, or...
Council.
Madam Chair and Senator, actually, the amendments were the same, so if they both pass, it's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Gustafson. I hear you loud and clear. I believe me, I've been having these conversations for over a year, and I get where they're coming from. I really, really do. It's why we've worked so closely with the League and Greater Minnesota cities, because that input is critical. I'm going to ask for a no vote, and the reason why is I think sections 1 and 2 with the 60 days are really critical. I am more than happy to work on that language to see if there's an extension for certain reasons, or we make it 90 days instead of 60 days. But consistently, especially with affordable projects, what we've heard time and time and time again is that, unfortunately, cities use the fact that they don't have to give a permit by a certain day to draw out the process for, as we heard, 6 months, 10 months, 2 years. And as you add those costs to it, which inevitably come, especially in a moment where lumber's literally going up every day, interest rates are high, you're adding costs, and it simply kills affordable projects. So I'm more than happy to work with you on it, but I can't support removing it. The blighted area, I already had told Mr. Lightfoot that would be happy to work on narrowing that so that it's more specific. And specifically, we at one point had comfort language that called out that although historic areas would not have a factor in this, would not be factored into this, like specifically called out that it does not affect historic areas, and would be happy to add something like that back in. But in this current form, I will ask for no vote.
And we have a couple of questions or comments. Let's make sure at this point they are relevant to the amendment that we are on. Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it is relevant. So I stand in support of the amendment. The 60-day is an issue. Now, again, when I was in local government, I always strived to make sure we're turning these permits over. But a city of Faribault has 2 building inspectors. And now the potential for one to go out on paid family leave, as this goes forward, you're down to 1 building inspector. City of Faribault has 4 international worldwide companies. They're doing project expansions. We're having single-family housing going on. And they can simply not turn some things over if they lose 1 person. And to contract somebody else to come in to fill in for the person that's out on paid family leave is going to cost double what it would for a normal person, because it's not a year-round position. So again, we strive, and the city of Faribault strives to turn those building permits over, and I think they do. But if this would happen and you couldn't turn it over, this automatically goes through, and that's a huge safety issue. And again, 60 days, all our cities strive to turn those permits over within 60 days, but certain circumstances may not allow that to happen in the future. And so we again, can't just automatically approve something if they can't meet that requirement. There's got to be some type of an extension or something, but to automatically approve is just not doing good government. So I would support the amendment by Senator Gustafson.
Thank you. Senator Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Was there this is a little bit off, but is there a roll call on the overall bill requested?
There has not been a roll call requested.
I would like to request one, please.
A roll call has been requested on the overall bill. Seeing, do you have any further comments, Senator Port, before we take a vote?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Dziedzic, to your concerns, just like I said to Senator Gustafson, I'm happy to work on the details of that 60-day piece, whether we extend it to make it longer, whether there's an extension process that exists for certain reasons. Happy to look at that. I'm not comfortable with taking it out.
Chair, can I ask for a roll call on the amendment, please?
Yes, and I would, can we go to council for 1 second, because she does have a clarification.
Madam Chair and members, there is an opportunity for a time extension in that statute in subdivision 3, paragraph F. It states that the agency can ask for another 60-day extension if the agency provides written notice of the extension, the reasons for the extension. But that extension cannot exceed another 60 days, so.
So a potential 120 days if there is an extended extension. Senator
Chair,
Gustafson?
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I'm sorry, Council, can you point out exactly where that is again?
The council?
Sure, it's in Minnesota statutes 15.99, subdivision 3, paragraph F.
So council, it's not in the bill, it's part of the regular process?
It's in the existing statute.
Senator Dziedzic?
Madam Chair, but wouldn't this bill override that or not?
Council?
Madam Chair, Senator, no, that's part of the existing law is the agencies submit an application. The city or state has 60 days to approve it. If they provide a written notice within that 60-day period of a reason for extension, it can be extended another 60 days. That's part of the process existing process under 15.99.
Thank you.
Senator Gustafson?
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just take a moment, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely, Senator Gustafson. And members, if this passes, it would be placed on general orders. So I believe there would also be time to work on it between that, and there would also be a period on the floor where amendments could be offered. Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Port, do you happen to know what the status of this bill in the other body is?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Morrison. The status of the bill in the other body is that it passed out of state government and is on the floor on general orders. It is in different shape than it has more language that was requested by the cities in the bill than this does.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Port. So there likely would be a conference committee where there's more time to work on the bill.
Madam Chair and Senator Morrison,
Senator
yes, there
Port.
would definitely be a conference committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Port, for being explicit.
Thank you. Senator Gustafson?
Madam Chair, thank you. I think I'm going to stick with my original amendment, and here's why. I appreciate the clarification in the Minnesota statute, but just kind of going back to one of the concerns that originally came from our city was that we just don't have the staff power to be able to address this. And now that would be another level of making sure that they're tracking these 60 days and then getting in, a written extension. It's just kind of a logistical nightmare. And again, as all of you do, I'm sure, as we tour our cities and meet with our cities regularly, they're already telling us how short-staffed they are. So at this point, I'm glad that Senator Morrison brought up that there's more time to work on it, so that gives me some hope that we can maybe come to a solution. But at this point, I'm just going to stick with the amendment and as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Roll call was requested.
Oh, I apologize. I thought that was on the overall bill. Roll call will be taken.
Chair Mitchell,
No.
Chair Dziedzic, Senator Anderson,
Yes.
Senator Barr,
Aye.
Senator Carlson,
No.
Senator Cwodzinski,
Yes.
Senator Dziedzic,
Aye.
Senator Fateh,
No.
Senator Gustafson,
Yes.
Senator Dziedzic,
Yep.
Senator Karan,
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator McQuaid, Senator Morrison.
Yes.
There being 9 yes votes and 3 no votes, the motion prevails. Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Madam Chair, I would ask at this point that you would entertain a motion from someone on the committee to lay this bill on the table.
Senator Fateh moves to lay this on the table, which I greatly appreciate because we have a number of other agenda items today, so thank you. All in favor of laying this on the table, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? With that, this is laid on the table. Thank you again, Senator Port, for your work and all of your thoughtful answers today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Up next, we have Senate File 5019, Senator Carlson. Deputy Commissioner, if you could sit on the side, please. Senator Carlson, please proceed at your convenience. I also know that this is the first stop for this bill, and you have an A1 amendment. Would you like to offer that to start?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to offer the A1 authoring amendment to Senate File 5019.
Thank you. Senator Carlson offers the A1 amendment. This is the first stop, and it would get the bill in the order that the author requests. All in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Carlson, can you please speak to your bill as amended?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Senate File 5019 is an MMB agency bill that updates the approval process for managerial and compensation plans for unrepresented employees. This conforms with the updates to the contract ratification process from the 2023 session. I'm joined here by Dory Leland, Enterprise Director for Employee Classification and Compensation, who will provide an overview of the bill. I also we have passed the A1 amendment, and the conversation will refer to that A1 amended bill.
Ms. Leyland, can you please state your name for the record and proceed?
Thank you. Dory Leland, the Enterprise Director for Employee Classification and Compensation. The intent of Senate File 5019 is conformity in the process for implementing compensation provisions for both represented and unrepresented employees. As was just indicated, last legislative session, changes were made throughout Minnesota Statutes 3.855 for the 85% of state employees who are represented by a union. Essentially, those contracts are now ratified after a vote from membership and implementation by MNB. The plans for unrepresented employees, however, still require interim approval from the Subcommittee on Employee Relations and a vote of the full legislature before coming into permanent effect. And the intent of this bill is to treat represented and unrepresented employees the same.
Thank you for your testimony. And Commissioner, are you here to answer questions, or do you want to testify as well?
Just here to answer questions.
Thank you. Senator Carlson, anything further before I open this up to questions?
I have nothing further, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions? Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Carlson, this looks like just a continuation of the work you did last year, removing for the I think the 5 collective bargaining units. So does this include all remaining employees within the state of Minnesota for which collective bargaining exists?
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Senator Curran. I'm going to request my advisor here on that,
Ms. Leland.
close to the issue.
Chair, Senator Curran, I believe the existing language covers all represented employees, and so this language would only be for the unrepresented employee plans.
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Curran.
So that includes the remaining number of state employees, right? The first were all represented, these are unrepresented. So are there any other categories that would require any type of oversight by the subcommittee for employee relations and or the legislature?
Ms. Leland.
Madam Chair, Senator Curran, I think there may still be a provision in here for the state auditor's office, but the Office of the Legislative Auditor, but I need to double check. But the majority of the remainder of state employees, yes, that's true.
Madam Chair.
Senator Curran.
And thank you. So this just moves Minnesota government payroll on autopilot. And we always hear, we've heard forever, that these contracts are negotiated in good faith. I don't know when you would have engaged in a contract negotiation without being in good faith. But to further remove and put Minnesota on autopilot for literally every a very critical aspect of our resources, it's pay is one thing, benefits, all those things are collectively should be oversaw by the legislature, and to remove us from that process and to put it on autopilot, I think is a disservice to the citizens of Minnesota. We should have oversight in every way. It was eroded over the last 4 or 5 years by the agency's lack of compliance with the existing state law. And this just corrects it and removes any oversight. And so I have real concerns. It's like negotiating with yourself. Public unions, which are the largest funding entity for all Democrat elections, it's a great reward for them. But that's not how we respond or how we should be accountable for the citizens of Minnesota, in addition to building a great workforce and making sure compensation plans and all benefits are competitive and rewarding and foster great output and productivity. This won't help us get to that. And so I think it's really another sad day in Minnesota that the taxpayers don't have a voice anymore, period. It's left up to the administrative side, unaccountable elected people, unaccounted, unelected people, to make these important decisions. The total cost of government all starts, and again, wages aren't everything. That's a smaller portion of government, but the workforce is important about what we get in the accountability. We don't have that accountability, and so now we have no legislative oversight in any facet of our workforce from the legislature. And so I think it's a wrong direction to go. It just caps off the last, but maybe a handful of employees where there will be no legislative oversight for any compensation or benefit packages from this point forward. And so I'm against this bill, and I request a roll call, Madam Chair.
Senator Curran, this would be laid over.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Madam Chair, I concur with Senator Curran. And Senator Carlson, I mean, you passed the other 85% out last session, and as Senator Curran correctly pointed out, I've been involved in this process as a member of the Subcommittee on Employee Relations for a number of years. And what you have here is at least the way things are currently configured and have been for quite some time in Minnesota, you've got the Democrat unions negotiating with the Democrat governor. And so the unions didn't like the pushback that was offered by the Subcommittee on Employee Relations or the oversight that they were providing. And so they want to ensure that they can dictate the outcome because they're, as we can see currently and going forward, you've got the Democrats negotiating with the Democrats. Well, members, and those of you that are Democrats and those of you in the public sector employee unions, if in the future the governor of this state becomes a Republican, you're banking on there never being a Republican governor in this state again. And if there is one, he or she is going to actually bring some oversight to this process, and you're going to want to turn around potentially and try to send it back the other way again. This is not a good idea. We should have the people of the state and the people here in the legislature that are elected to represent them to provide some oversight and have a more sophisticated approach to employee issues, employee compensation, et cetera, than one that simply has the chief executive, one person deciding on these each year. We just had these contracts go through, what was it, 10% COLAs, and then, how was it, 4 or 5% for steps or something like that on top of that. Numbers we haven't seen before. And this is going to become more and more commonplace where the people who are in the public sector unions are going to be dictating to the people who are paying their salaries. It's just a horrible place to be in. And members, this is the wrong direction. And if we want to create equity between the two, we should actually bring the powers back to the legislature. We are making the legislature weaker with this, and we're making the executive branch stronger. And that is not a good recipe for success. And we lay this bill over, Madam Chair. I hope that it doesn't end up in a bill moving forward. We got to head back the other direction. And I urge the Democrats in the legislature, in the Senate, to think more carefully about what we're doing here. Because while it might be what your major constituency wants right now, it's not the best thing for the state of Minnesota in our future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we have a long agenda, so I'd basically just like to agree with Senator Coran and Senator Drazkowski. Under one-party control, we are drastically changing the way our government works in this state. And the people in the state of Minnesota elect us as officials to put some checks and balances in what's going on. And you are taking that completely away. You are putting it on autopilot, as referred to. This is the worst change I've seen in my 8 years here of changing things like this with no checks and balances. With that, I know we have a long committee, so I'm going to stop it. What's happening here in the state of Minnesota is awfully dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dziedzic. Senator Coran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Carlson, I think you guys eliminated the any oversight for municipal salaries, right? One of the roles of the Subcommittee on Employee Relations, so we'll have local governments being an uncontrolled, without even any transparency and any oversight from that perspective. This takes off the last of the employees that were covered under the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. So I assume one of your bills will then be finally calling for the formal elimination of the Subcommittee on Employee Relations, because I think this essentially does that. And so will you be calling for and drafting a bill to eliminate the Subcommittee on Employee Relations as it relates to this bill?
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Grant, no, that's not my plan.
Thank you, Senator
Chair, quick
Carlson.
follow-up.
Senator Coran.
Senator Carlson, what role is left then for the Subcommittee on Employee Relations?
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Grant, we do have an executive in control of the state, has been elected and can be unelected. Now, I don't want to turn this into any kind of a partisan exchange here, but one of the things we have to think about is also maintaining our staff in the future. And the fact of the matter is that we've had a real problem in bringing people into the state government because, for instance, our salaries are not high. And I think that this is the kind of thing that gets involved, or let's say gets tied up in political politics way too much. And so I think we have a good plan here for compensation committees. They do their research, they come out with their reports, and they make recommendations. And so I think that that is something that is, I think, common in other states. And I think if we have a blame that can go around, then it does go up to the executive in charge.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. Senator Curran.
And thank you, Senator Carlson. I've talked to the unions, everybody. I'll be the champion for hiring more competitive compensation packages. But what must come first is a complete retraining and revamping of the workforce, and no one's interested in talking about that. And so we need accountability to be baked in. That doesn't exist. Doesn't mean we don't have great workers and great employees, but no one's willing to have that conversation. Everybody wants the benefits on the tail side of a great compensation package, but we have to change it in its entirety. All of our IT projects, everybody blames we have a technology. We don't have a technology problem. We have a business knowledge logic problem. We've got great people, but the process in government doesn't automatically require us to do things that the private sector does being attached. Our customers always seem to come back because they don't have a choice. And so we could do these things where every single person wins. The employee, the business unit, all of our business processes, in addition to the taxpayers, are going to be telling us we get great value for the dollars we pay. But nobody's willing to have that conversation. So to say we're going to put on autopilot and it's going to somehow solve some problem is just disingenuous. It does not. It's the same people negotiating their own wages without any oversight. And I don't mean it should be oppositional. It should be oversight. And that's the role of the legislature and the people who are elected to serve. And so we could do that, but not one person's willing to have that conversation. The governor won't even have a conversation or take a meeting about it. And everybody wins. Every single employee would win, and we'd be in a position, I'd be the champion for the greatest wages we have in this state. No one's willing to have that conversation. This doesn't set it on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Curran. Seeing no further questions or comments, Senate File 5019 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Carlson, if you could please stay in place for 5020. This is also the first stop of this bill, and I understand you have an amendment. Would you like that offered? It is to get this in the shape you desire.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have the A1 author's amendment.
Senator Carlson offers the A1 amendment. All in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The A1 amendment is adopted. Senator Carlson, if you could please explain your bill as amended.
Thank you. Senate File 5020 is another Minnesota Management and Budget Agency bill that provides updates and to modernize and streamline state personnel management practices. I'm here joined by Deputy Commissioner Blake Chaffee, who will provide an overview of the bill. I also have that A1 amendment that all comments are being spoken to that A1 amendment.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner, if you can please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Yeah, Chair, committee members, for the record, I'm Blake Chaffee, Deputy Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. Briefly, Senate File 5020 modernizes and streamlines state personnel management practices. The changes in the bill fall into three broad categories. First, technical changes, including updates to conformity with other laws and non-substantive word choice changes. These include additional protected class categories from the Minnesota Human Rights Act, removing criteria of age and health for considering salary on demotion, and making changes throughout 43A to be in conformity with changes made to the collective bargaining ratification process from last legislative session. Other changes are technical in nature, including renaming the Commissioner's Plan to the Non-Represented Employees Compensation Plan. Many folks are often surprised to know that there are indeed no commissioners in the Commissioner's Plan. Also replacing or deleting obsolete references and making chapters internally consistent. Second category covered in the bill are changes to strengthen pay equity compliance and to modernize and streamline personnel practices and processes. MMB has an existing obligation to monitor pay equity between male-dominated and female-dominated job classifications and to report compensation equities to the legislature. Proposed language expands Minnesota's monitoring obligations, MMB's monitoring obligations to the additional categories of race and disability. It also simplifies the process for notifying the legislature of appropriations necessary to maintain or reach pay equity compliance. For streamlining personnel practices and processes, items addressed in the bill include more clearly defining the process for agencies to hire emergency workers, updating the time agencies can employ student workers, providing stronger pathway for agencies to integrate employees from our Connect 700 program into the workforce, and streamlining reporting obligations to single annual reports rather than multiple ad hoc reports throughout the year. The bill also provides updates to the state employee group insurance program to streamline administration. Highlights of these provisions include updates to the independent billing units participating in CGIP to better reflect current participation, removing authority for 3 unused programs, and adding additional flexibility related to the implementation of the CGIP high deductible health plan. Concludes a brief overview of the bill. Thank you again, Chair, committee members, for your consideration. Be glad to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Are there any further questions, Senator Curran?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Carlson, on Section 2, and I think Deputy Commissioner Chaffee, is it Chaffee or Chaffee?
Chair, Senator Chafee.
Chafee. Thank you. Commissioner Chafee, on Section 2, help me understand the relationships male-dominated, the evaluation of the report for male-dominated versus female-dominated job classifications. And so tell me how that would work. Because, I mean, in government, if we keep talking about the disparities that exist in government. And it's one of the areas where it's least likely to occur, and I find it very difficult that we claim it does occur. Because based on, right, your hire date, right, and although it would likely occur now, because you have far more flexibility in bringing people in and starting them in different steps within a specific job classification. So within a specific job classification, you have more male-dominated, more female-dominated positions. What would the corrective action look like? Or why is it implied there's corrective action even necessary?
Deputy Commissioner?
Yeah, Chair, Senator, I might defer to Ms. Leland on this. Her class and comp team actually does the work, manages the report every 2 years.
Ms. Leland.
Thank you, Chair and Senator Curran. So the existing requirement, the terms male-dominated and female-dominated are already identified in statute, and a male-dominated class is one where 80% of the incumbents are male, female-dominated is 70% of the incumbents are female. Every 2 years, we submit a report that says that the average, that compares the average pay for those male-dominated classes and identifies female-dominated classes that are substantially less than those male-dominated classifications.
Okay, but they're different jobs, Madam Chair. Sorry, Madam Chair, and Ms. Leland, they're different jobs. So what disparity within that job classification? In a specific job classification, are you saying there's disparities between male and females?
Ms. Leland.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Curran. So the existing process that is required by statute compares job classifications, right? And so all job classifications have a specific point value that is attached to them. This is for local government as well as for state government. And so it compares a female-dominated job classification with 300 points to a male-dominated job classification with 300 points.
Madam Chair.
Senator Curran.
And so I'm trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve. People gravitate towards industries. Bricklayers are almost 99% males, right? I mean, there's a natural progression, but within each one of those job classifications, the pay scales are the same, unless the hiring agency now, which has more flexibility, to start somebody off on a separate step as part of the incentives that you guys have now on attracting and hiring. But within those specific job classifications, rating a job classification is a right? We guys did the reevaluation of those to make sure it was applicable for the skills and the requirements and the expectations. But everybody's paid with the same within it. Everybody receives the same, right? Step increases are hardly ever denied. They're automatic. And so everybody's on the same scale until they reach the top of the scale for step increases, and then dominated by how many ever pay classification ranges there are within it. I'm just struggling that because a job may be more male-dominated or female-dominated, that it's a problem at all, and that we would even need study or research. So, and you kept using language about, well, the disparity. What disparity? And that's within a job classification. There are just trends. Men and women go to different. We don't have any processes prohibiting and hiring, and if somebody's hired to do the same job, they start at the same pay scale. So that's where I'm struggling at. And so none of it makes any sense besides it's just another reason. So do we move everybody up in one pay scale because of the particular job? Requirements haven't changed, but because it's more female dominated for some reason, and then it happens to be a lower skill set or job classification. So do we have to automatically then move that up to match a male-dominated class, which is completely different job and job classification? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't see the nexus between what this statement is, the reason for the change, and what its intended outcome is, or what it's trying to solve. So it just seems confusing. So try to help me out with that.
Deputy Commissioner, did you have a comment?
Well,
Ms. Lee.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Chair, Senator.
I thought you looked like you had a comment.
Of course. Apologies for that. I think if I understand, Senator, what you're saying correctly, it is less about the existence of male-dominated classes and female-dominated classes, and it is more about equitable pay, because what we do have the ability to do through the way in which classifications are set, we use a Hay rating scale to determine things like the complexity and type of work. And so it is simply to ensure that while it may be a different job classification, if they are rated similarly, that pay would be equitable.
Madam Chair?
Senator Cran.
Commissioner, I believe that's what you did. Every job has done that, and as they evolve, right, you continually evaluate if those requirements change within those, right, the skill sets and those things within any specific job classification. But you keep inserting that because of who dominates that, who particularly is drawn to those fields, that it somehow is a problem. Equitable pay is true within every classification, but to say there's a disparity because it's male or female dominated within a classification, to me there's something that's not clear here. So that's what I'm getting at. And so to me, it just looked like a vehicle, unnecessary vehicle, because as part of your original requirements is what you do within the job classifications and union structure and all of those things to make sure that we have good equitable pay. And because I've heard the same thing, that we've got disparities in our IT side, that women aren't paid as much, and it's just not true. And if it is, then the state has engaged in purely discriminatory practices, which should have been eliminated. And it's very difficult to have those disparities because of the structure. So that's what I'm getting at. And so so far I haven't heard a satisfactory answer besides, well, we're just going to have to keep looking at it because of who the job attracts. We are going to somehow arbitrarily set a need to change it because who it attracts. So you understand where I'm going with it, and that's what I'm struggling with. So, Madam Chair, I have another question.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Senator Barr. Senator Cran.
Madam Chair, I just had I got two follow-up or two separate issues. So,
Senator Cran.
Section 22. If an employee is demoted, the commissioner can make an exception to keep them at their current pay. A demotion is typically a result of a failure to perform. So why would we pay, or why would we need to pay somebody that has failed to meet their obligations and perform at a level we deem acceptable? Why would we continue to reward them with the same pay for a job that's got lesser requirements?
Ms. Leland.
Chair, Senator Coran, so the language has been in the statute for a long time about the circumstances when somebody may retain a salary on demotion, and the criteria includes when changes are made to a job that's outside the employee's control, there's some kind of layoff or whatever else. And there are 5 identified criteria currently that M&B is permitted to consider whenever we get these requests. We don't get them very often. 2 of those criteria are age and health, which are not reasons that we should ever take into account. But the remainder, the need for an exception process for the Commissioner of M&B to consider maintaining salary on demotion, we typically don't grant requests if it's for some kind of performance issue. It's because of, for reasons outside of the employee's control.
What would those, Madam Chair, what would those conditions be outside of their control?
I heard her say health as one of them.
No.
Did I not? Ms. Leland?
Chair, Senator Coran, so there may be examples where the work is being eliminated in one area, and so it's some kind of involuntary layoff situation. There's restructuring in the workplace. A work office closes, and they want to move into a separate area, and they have a unique skill set. And so, again, we don't get very many of these type of requests, and we give them all careful consideration. But we don't currently consider age and health, and so the intent of this language is just a technical change to make clear that we do not consider those illegal considerations when we're establishing salary in those unique circumstances for salary on demotion. But as a practice matter, no, we don't typically, I can't think of any time when we have retained somebody's salary on demotion if they're being demoted for some kind of disciplinary reason.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for the clarification, and I apologize that I misheard. Senator Coran?
Ms. Leland, I do recall an instance where that occurred, and so that was in the case of the Department of Human Services, the Office of the Inspector General. The Office of the Inspector General was removed because of failure of performance and then kept her salary to move into a lesser position. And so the head of an agency failed to perform and then to continually reward somebody, thus removing accountability and not adjusting the wages to that particular position. I don't care about the changing the other reasons why you would grant or for consideration. Regardless of when a position changes, it happens all the time in the real world. And so if you take a lesser job, you typically, unless it's for a very short period of time, but if you take a lesser job, it's a requirement. Restructuring, downsizing, reorganizing, those things happen all the time. They're out of employees' controls and not performance-based. But here we're going to say, well, you can keep your pay and move into a lesser position. So that just shouldn't exist in our repertoire. And then I just have the last question, Madam Chair. Section 24 removes the LCC's ability to modify the management plan. I assume this is just more of the putting on autopilot any legislative oversight for compensation packages for the managerial plan.
Ms. Leland?
Chair, Senator Coran, the intent of that change is just conformity with changes that were already made to remove the modification provisions from 3.855 last year. And so this is in conformity to what has already been done in the LCC section.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Senator Barr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to address Section 34, which is on page 21, near the bottom, lines 28, 29, 30.
Senator Barr?
Looks like we're going to do a switch. I'll let the phone a friend come up to the table first, Madam Chair. So my question about this is, it says a former member of the legislature may elect to get coverage, and I went and looked at the statute 43A 24, subdivision 2, clause 11. What price are we paying? Are we paying a full, if somebody elects to keep coverage, are they going to be paying full price, or is it at the price I'm paying now? Deducted from my
Can you
payroll?
please state your name and position for the record and then proceed with the question?
Madam Chair, Senators, my name is Galen Benshouf. I'm the Enterprise Director for Employee Insurance at MMB. And Senator Barr, to your question, I believe that would be the former legislator would be paying the full price.
100%. Sorry, Madam Chair. So 100%, so there wouldn't be a state match or a state pay down or anything like that. So it would move as the price of insurance goes up. The former legislator would pay 100%, correct?
Mr. Is it Benshoff?
Benshouf.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Senator Barr, That's correct. That's currently what the statute requires, and that's what would be the case also under these modifications.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no further questions or comments, Senate File 5020 is laid over for possible inclusion. Senator Carlson, if you could stay up there. We now have Senate File 5018. This is also the first stop for this bill, and my understanding is you have an A1 amendment. Would you like to offer that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do have the A1 amendment to Senate File 5018.
The A1 amendment is offered to get this in the shape that Senator Carlson would like it in. All in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is adopted. Senator Carlson, can you please speak to the bill as amended?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is an agency bill, and I'm joined by Deputy Commissioner Blake Chafee, who can provide an overview of the bill. This is a bill that repeals the gain-sharing program, and the gain-sharing program, interestingly, I think was one that I was behind the bill that brought it in. So it's interesting that this is the end of its life.
Okay, circle. It's a big circle. Deputy Commissioner, could you please speak to the bill?
Yes, certainly. Bill proposes to repeal the gain-sharing program that is established in statute, but that MMB to this point has not been able to implement. Gain-sharing seeks to provide financial incentives to employees who are able to identify and implement efficiencies and cost savings in state government. MMB has encountered several barriers to implementing the program. First and foremost, funds provided by another level of government or external source must most often be used for a specific purpose. So, for example, states' use of federal funds are governed by cooperative and grant agreements. Any plan to change the use of these funds or to retain savings for another purpose is subject to federal review and approval. Expenditures inconsistent with cooperative and grant agreements would be a disallowed cost, and that would be a cost to the state. Same kind of constraint applies to transfers between funds within a jurisdiction. For example, if savings are generated in a fund that receives transfers from another fund, any savings may need to be returned to the originating fund to comply with appropriations law. Second, we have a little bit of a timing issue. The statute requires that gain-sharing awards must be paid from the appropriation from which the savings accrued. In many cases, that will not be possible to measure actual costs of savings, until, let's say, the end of a fiscal year, given the circumstance. That means that the state funds would have expired and would transfer back and would be unable to be used for an award. Third, most of the work performed by state is collaborative, and it would be difficult to identify a single person who can take full credit for development and implementation of cost-saving ideas. Measuring gains is an imperfect exercise that may lead to inequitable results and which could open the door to unnecessary employee disputes and who is entitled to receive which portion of which gains. Finally, gain sharing is duplicative of negotiated employee achievement awards, a program that incentivizes and rewards employees who, among other things, identify cost savings in the enterprise and do so without legal and practical concerns, I think, identified today. Achievement Award program has existed in contracts and compensation plans, reviewed and ratified by the legislature for, I think, a little over 10 years at this point. Thank you again for the opportunity to present this. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Senator Cran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Chafee, over the 10 years, has anything been paid out then in violation of what you just described?
Deputy Commissioner?
Chair, Senator, in achievement awards?
Well, no, in the actual intent of the gain sharing plan as it was described.
Chair, Senator, no. MMB has made efforts to implement the program for the reasons that I just stated in my testimony. That's not been possible. Most certainly, we have had achievement awards for several years, and they certainly speak, I think, to the intent and the purpose, potentially not fully, understandably, but we have been able to, I think, act and incentivize those sorts of cost savings, those sorts of programs, but no.
Madam Chair.
Senator Coran?
Commissioner Chafee, I agree with you. I'm glad you mentioned the achievement awards because I believe we've had kind of this oversight trying to look at it and see is it working, and that's what I recall as well, is that it ultimately just ended up in achievement awards, which are discretionary, right? And I understand it and I get it. So I'm in agreement. Thank you for removing this this program in its entirety. And there was no separate funding in any place. It was, as you described, it was to be pulled from the pools where the savings were achieved. So no separate funding outside of possible federal spending and, you know, anything that was an existing program funded by the feds and or the state where the achievement or the savings were recognized made it prohibitive. Meaning we didn't have a separate appropriation for any of this. It was to be garnered out of the area where savings occurred, which we've never been able to determine any savings occur. I was just looking at funding side, so we don't have any.
Ms. Leyland is indicating agreement with your statement.
Madam Chair, Senator Coran, assuming I understood what you're saying, there's never been any funding for this program and no awards have been given out of it. That is a true statement.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Senator Coran. Seeing no further questions, Senate File 5018 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Up next, we have Senate File 5423, Senator Dziedzic. This is also the first stop for this bill, and my understanding is there are not any amendments.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Thank you, members. This is a Department of Administration bill. It provides some grant clarifications and establishes the state building renewable energy storage and electric vehicle account. I believe that you have a handout in your packet, and I believe someone from admin is there to testify.
Yes, we have Ms. Grunwald. Hi. Once you're settled, if you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Tamar Grunwald. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Administration. And with me is Assistant Commissioner Jennifer Hassemer from the Minnesota Management and Budget. The governor's recommendation contained in Senate File 5423 reflects admin's efforts to clarify ambiguities and help our partners take advantage of federal funding opportunities. Admin's requests are budget-neutral policy changes and technical clarifications. First, the governor recommends establishing the state's building renewable energy storage and electric vehicle account. This will enable admin to leverage federal funds and improve the resilience of agency operations. Admin's Office of Enterprise Sustainability works with agencies to help them improve the energy efficiency of their operations and avoid facility energy costs. In this work, agencies have told us they need resources to make renewable energy and storage improvements. The Federal Inflation Reduction Act created a program for non-taxed entities called Direct Pay in lieu of tax credits to non-taxed entities. This program provides cash rebates for eligible renewable energy investments and electric vehicle purchases. The private sector has had access to these tax credits for many years. Legislation is needed to clarify where federal direct pay credits will go. This proposal would create an account to receive the federal direct pay cash rebates and return them to the relevant agency or to be used to fund future renewable energy and storage projects. This proposal is only for the policy language to establish the fund in statute. The governor has also recommended a general fund appropriation to seed this account in the capital budget. Eligible projects at state facilities can qualify for a cash rebate from the federal government of 6 to 50% of the cost to install these systems. Admin will work with agencies to identify eligible projects and administer the logistics to receive the federal funds. Additionally, the governor recommends a budget-neutral technical clarification to the Office of Grants Management's appropriation to conform the session law with the spreadsheet that the conference committee adopted. Finally, the governor recommends clarifying the process for organizations to follow who were appropriated cash capital grants. That concludes my overview of our supplemental budget requests. Thank you to Senator Dziedzic for authoring Senate File 5423, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have another testifier?
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Please
right.
identify yourself for the record and continue with your testimony.
Great, thank you. So I'm Jennifer Hassemer, Assistant Commissioner for Debt Management at Minnesota Management and Budget. Thank you for the opportunity to make a brief comment on Senate File 5423 today. This is in regards to Article 2 of the bill, which is really just a fiscal housekeeping proposal. It would change where a portion of the motor vehicle lease sales tax revenue is deposited, specifically changing the reference currently from the State Transportation Fund to the Special Revenue Fund instead. The State Transportation Fund holds state general obligation bond proceeds, and this proposal would correct the situation where sales tax revenues are currently being commingled with state bond proceeds. This would not change the eligible uses of those state sales tax revenues, which would still be available for transportation purposes. It would only redirect where they are deposited. This proposal was developed in consultation with MnDOT and would reflect good fiscal management practices. And I'm happy to answer questions about that article.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions on the bill? Oh, Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you give me a little more detail? That it doesn't seem like that would necessarily be a good move for those transportation dollars to be going to a special revenue fund. Why don't you create a new fund that's specific to those transportation dollars, put it in its own account? That would make a lot more sense. I'm sure Senator Dibble would probably be more comfortable with that, or does he have an opinion on this? And then one last question, it almost makes it seem like this should be going through the Transportation Committee at some point in time. It's a pretty big ticket item.
Yes, go ahead, Madam Chair, Senator. Thank you for the question. It is, again, mostly a technical fiscal housekeeping proposal. We'd be happy to talk to Senator Dibble about it. The State Transportation Fund was created in statute as a means of holding general obligation bond proceeds that were specifically appropriated by the legislature, mostly for local road and bridge projects that are appropriated in the bonding bill. It's not good fiscal management practice to commingle bond proceeds with other sources of revenue. So this is just a proposal to find a different account to deposit those sales tax revenues into.
Thank you. Senator Lang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I agree with that standpoint. The problem is that you're putting it in the special revenue fund, which is, I mean, how many different accounts are in that account? There's got to be hundreds, right? I mean, that seems probably not achieving the intent that you wanted to make a better fiscal management practice, because it doesn't seem like a better fiscal management practice to me. Just create a new account, call it whatever you want, call it the transportation sales tax account. Done. Makes more sense that way. Thank you, ma'am.
And the intention for this bill would be to lay it over for possible inclusion. So I'm sure if there are ideas, Senator Dziedzic would be very open to that. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Article 1 and Section 1 of the bill creates the account. When do the federal funds expire?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
Senator, are you referring to the renewable energy account? Is that what you're referring to?
Senator Drazkowski?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner?
Thank you. This is a new program that it's being made available to non-taxed entities, and it's a credit program. So my understanding is there's not an expiration necessarily to the program, but there would be some deadlines associated with projects that would be submitted, and we would have to submit them in time to get the rebates. That would be directed by guidance from the IRS on when we should get those in.
Senator Drazkowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. So Commissioner, you're going to create, I mean, this is another bill, the fourth one I've seen in a row coming from the executive branch. The executive branch wrote the bill, and they are here testifying again. Madam Chair, I'm really confounded with the direction we're going here. it seems to me the executive branch is writing law right before us here today. This is the fourth bill in a row that they are bringing, and their ideas are potentially going to be just zoomed right into our bill. This isn't how I'm used to legislating, but apparently it's how the majority is legislating. Again, Madam Chair, the legislature is its own branch, and we're supposed to come forward with our bill ideas, and we are seeing, again, the executive branch before us just writing law left and right if this stuff is adopted. So what the executive branch wants to do here, members, is in Article 1, Section 1, is to develop a new account for part of the left's woke agenda around renewable energy and storage and green stuff. And I don't know if they're going to buy electric cars for all the agencies to run or what, or if they will be able to run at that point or not. But they are then going to apply for federal grants. Is that right, Commissioner? Apply for federal grants and then populate the fund with the money from the federal grants that they received. Is that what we're reading?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Senator, these are not federal grants. These are federal credits. These are tax credits, meaning the state spends the money on the energy renewable efforts or the renewable energy efforts or energy saving efforts that are eligible under this IRS program, and then they seek from the federal government a tax credit or a rebate. This is money that's available to all states.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, Madam Chair and Commissioner, so it sounds like there's going to be a rebate eventually, or maybe a series of them that is deposited into these funds or into this fund for use around, additional use around the woke green energy agenda of the left. Is that right?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Senator, the hope is that eligible projects, there's a tax credit available, and Minnesota will receive the money associated with the tax credit.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, Madam Chair and Commissioner, do we know when we will no longer be able to accept or deposit the proceeds from tax credits into this account?
Commissioner?
I don't know that.
Well,
Senator Drazkowski?
Well, Madam Chair, I'm told that it's, well, I'm not told. I have an A2 amendment I'd like to.
Senator Drazkowski offers the A2 amendment.
So what this does is expires the fund on June 30th of 2032 to make certain that indeed the proceeds from the tax credits that would potentially be deposited in here authorized by the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 would no longer be coming to the state of Minnesota. So if this fund is no longer going to be needed by that time, it would allow us to get rid of that fund so that we don't have even yet more extra funds rolling around state government. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator Dziedzic, this would add a line, because I know you don't have a copy of this, or you might not, that says expiration, subdivision 7, this section expires June 30th, 2032. That is the only change on that amendment. Do you have any comment to the amendment?
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I would like to ask the testifiers what they think of the amendment.
Commissioner.
If they see a problem with it.
Apologies for cutting you off. Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator. So yes, the concern about that is even if the credits would expire in 2032, there's a time lag between when you can no longer apply for credits and when credits could continue to come in. My understanding is that we would need time beyond 2032. And I want to just check with the Director of the Office of Enterprise Sustainability and make sure that is correct. Thank you.
I am seeing a head nod that says that is correct, just for people watching at home. Thank you. Senator Drazkowski.
So, Madam Chair, may I ask the Commissioner what, at what date could we expire the fund and not be in danger, probably the wrong word, but in conflict with the logistics of these federal funds?
Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator. Senator, if I understand your question correctly, you're asking how much farther we'd have to extend it from 2032?
Correct.
I would suggest probably at least 6 years, or we defer to, we wait to determine that based on IRS guidance. What we don't want to risk is spending the state money, applying for the credit, having to wait, or basically cut ourselves off from the credit. So we've spent the money, but we've not realized that federal benefit we're going to get. So that's what I'm concerned about. I think Minnesota should get all the federal benefits that it's eligible to get.
So, thank you, Commissioner.
Senator Drazkowski.
So, Madam Chair, I would move to amend my amendment by striking 2032 and inserting 2040. We'll give 2 more years.
Commissioner, do you
6
have?
plus 2 is 8.
What, Senator Drazkowski, is it 2040 or 2038?
Madam Chair, I was going to give an additional 2 years beyond the 6 years that the Commissioner was somewhat sure, but not completely.
2040.
So 2040, I just want to make sure this thing doesn't stick around forever, Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator. We're looking into the future, so we're hoping that that will give us some wiggle room.
Thank you. Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you. And it's my understanding, I want to clarify this with council, if at some point between now and, 2032, 2038, around 2038, if we don't think 2040 is long enough, we could come back and amend this potentially, correct?
Council is saying yes. So, Senator Dziedzic, the amendment, and then with the oral amendment, would be to 2040. Comments on the amendment?
I am nervous because you never know what a future legislature is going to do, but I do think that we would have time to change it, and so I'll take it as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Senator Dziedzic. Council, okay. Vote on the amendment as amended. Okay. Members, we are going to vote on the A2 amendment as orally amended, which would bring us to June 30th of 2040.
Madam Chair, point of
Senator
order.
Drazkowski.
We've got to vote on the amendment to the amendment first, and then we vote on the amended amendment.
I have counsel telling me that we can vote on the amendment as amended. What is your motion?
Well, Madam Chair, we have before us an amendment and an amendment to that amendment. The right way to do this would be to vote on the amendment to the amendment. In other words, the chair would say, all in favor of the amendment to the amendment to strike 2032 from the amendment and insert 2040, signify by saying aye.
Council is saying that we didn't have to do it that way, and we could have done it my way, but if the author of the amendment is going to be very particular about how we do this, what do you want?
He moved to amend.
Okay. Senator Drazkowski moves to amend the amendment to 2040. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Senator Drazkowski moves to move the amendment as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, this is Senate File 5423 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senators.
Senator Morrison. Senator Morrison is before us today with Senate File 3868. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, I do have an amendment. I believe it's the A8.
Senator Morrison offers the A8 amendment. Would you care to describe the amendment?
Madam Chair, could we adopt it, and then I could describe it as,
Sounds good. Senator Morrison offers the A8 amendment. All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
All opposed, nay. The amendment is adopted. Senator Morrison, to your bill in its entire form.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to bring this bill before you again. Last year, we had a pretty robust conversation about a different bill, but today this bill is just about a local option with the amendment offered. This bill is even more streamlined to give localities with odd year-only elections in Minnesota the opportunity to adopt ranked choice voting for their communities if they want to. I've spent the last 6 years talking to people on both sides of the aisle who tell me again and again that they're concerned about the toxicity and division of our politics and how it's harming our democracy. And many believe that ranked choice voting is the antidote to that. Ranked choice voting empowers voters to rank candidates in order of preference and ensures winners have a majority or the highest support possible in a single, decisive, and cost-effective election. In ranked choice elections, candidates must appeal to their opponent's supporters for second and third choice votes, and they do that by running positive campaigns that focus on policy solutions rather than personal attacks. That's exactly what we need to heal our political divisions and promote more civil, representative, and inclusive elections. Minnetonka is one of the few lucky cities that can use ranked choice voting. Under current law, only charter cities with odd year elections, which is less than 1% of Minnesota local jurisdictions, have the ability to adopt ranked choice voting. Without this legislation today, the Local Voices, Local Choices Act gives power to all cities and school districts to decide if ranked choice voting is best for their community. This bill promotes local control and has no mandates. It allows jurisdictions to adopt ranked choice voting by ordinance, resolution, referendum, or amending their charter if they do have one. It allows for the creation of standards for implementing ranked choice voting in both single and multi-seat nonpartisan elections. It gives the Secretary of State rulemaking authority to establish additional standards necessary for jurisdictions to implement ranked choice voting across multiple jurisdictions. And it provides for state certification of ranked choice voting equipment and tabulation systems, allowing for faster election results. This bill is about local control, empowering Minnesota communities to make decisions about how best to run their local elections. The bill before you is a result of conversations since last session, and the amendment today addresses the concerns that have been raised about implementing ranked choice voting concurrently with state general elections, and in effect limits the jurisdictions that could adopt ranked choice voting at this time to those cities and school districts that hold elections in odd years. Language referencing counties and the use of ranked choice voting in conjunction with state general elections have now been removed. I've been working with the Secretary of State's office to ensure the technical language of the bill works and additional technical amendments are included in this bill. I'm grateful for their efforts and their support. Ranked choice voting has been a huge success in the cities that use it, with higher voter turnout, more diverse outcomes, and voters reporting that it's easy to use and they like it. When there was an attempt to repeal ranked choice voting in Minnetonka this past year, part of my district, voters overwhelmingly rejected that repeal and voted to save ranked choice voting by a vote of 59% to 41%. Voters like it, and Minnesotans and other communities across the state would like to use it. We should give them that opportunity. So with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to my testifiers.
Secretary of State Simon, if you could please come forward, and Ms. Scimpione, if you want to go ahead and be on deck, that would be wonderful. At your convenience, Secretary of State Simon.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. A pleasure to be with you today. This bill is about community choice and flexibility. Right now, as you heard from Senator Morrison, we have a two-tiered system. The only category of city that is entitled to even try ranked choice voting, even to experiment with it, even on a one-time basis, the only category is charter cities. Those tend to be the bigger cities. And if you're a statutory city, which is most cities, you don't even have the opportunity to try. Now, I'll just say there are plenty of testifiers who are going to speak to the merits of ranked choice voting. Let me just put that on the shelf for a minute and say you don't have to be a fan of ranked choice voting to be a fan of this bill, because it is about local choice, it is about local control. And I don't see the problem with something that we know is constitutional, because we've already had that fight in Minnesota. It went up and down the courts. It's been declared legal and constitutional. I don't see what the problem is in allowing cities to experiment with it. Some cities will like it and want to keep it, and maybe some cities won't like it and they'll want to ditch it. But let them decide that. Let them find out. And this bill simply enables cities with odd year elections of all kinds, statutory and charter, to try ranked choice voting, to see if it suits them, to see if it suits their needs and the needs of their community. So I respectfully ask for your support. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Scipione?
Yes, Scipione, great job. Hello, Chair and committee members. I am Christina Scipione, and I am the Bloomington City Clerk. I've been managing elections since 2008 and was responsible for implementing ranked choice voting in Bloomington after it was approved by our voters in 2020. I'm speaking in support of two important aspects of this bill. First of all, I am in support of statewide standards for ranked choice voting. Consistency is important in elections, and we do have ranked choice voting here in Minnesota. Communities that choose to use ranked choice voting should all provide the same experience for their voters. Currently, the 5 RCV cities in Minnesota have differences in how they administer their elections. Statewide standards would create consistency and make it easier for all to understand how RCV elections are administered, and which increases transparency and trust in the electoral system. Additionally, statewide standards also lower the barrier to entry for communities that want to implement RCV but feel overwhelmed by the daunting task of creating an electoral system from scratch. The second provision I'm speaking in support of is allowing the use of federally tested RCV tabulation software. In Bloomington, we've had RCV for 2 local elections, and we've had the opportunity to use both tabulation methods currently available, a spreadsheet method and a hand count method. In both cases, those tabulation methods are manual processes which delay results reporting. Delayed results reporting provides room for misinformation to spread and can diminish trust in the electoral process. Software does exist that automates the RCV tabulation process, but current law does not provide for its use. Allowing the use of RCV tabulation software will minimize the time needed to hold tabulation rounds, giving our voters the quick results reporting they've come to expect. Finally, I'll speak briefly about the costs associated with administering ranked choice voting. Because ranked choice voting replaces a primary, RCV is less costly than a traditional primary and general election. In Bloomington, a primary election for the city's 31 precincts costs about $70,000. The average voter turnout in a local primary has historically been about 7%. In comparison, the RCV tabulation process typically costs about $1,000 to $3,000. If RCV tabulation software can be certified, this cost would decrease in the future. Thank you for your time today. As an election administrator, I appreciate the opportunity.
And as an election judge, I would like to say thank you for the work that you do. So, Senator Morrison, any further comments before we open it up?
I don't think so, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. See, Senator Cran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Morrison, we need again of a bill that just won't die. The process every day we read more and more headlines. Everybody keeps talking. I'm glad you changed the process of that it's removed barriers, and suddenly somehow it's met some of the stated objectives and goals. And so far, none of those things have happened except for a very small piece in the activist group. Your initial discussion, we talked about removing barriers. And so in our largest cities where that occurred, it removed the barriers so well that many people got to participate. And then the groups that brought that forward imposed barriers where it now come down to basic, I mean, look at the elections today in St. Paul, Minneapolis, for the ones that had for a couple years. It's back to the same volume of participants. There was never a barrier in the first place, except for now the barriers that are put in place because too many people participated and it's now cost prohibitive. We look at Larry Jacobs, right, University of Minnesota. I think, I'm not sure which group he's with. He went through Humphrey School of Business. He went through the detailed goals stated, and they haven't been achieved at all. Marginal in one place, I think, as far as women participation. When you look at participation overall elections, it hasn't come up. And those where it has, it's because candidates worked hard. It had nothing to do with the voting system. You had dedicated people who are actually out running to win, not running to just participate. I like every new statement used to try and change this voting system to one that's highly confusing. It's local voices, local choices, but you left out funded and promoted by entities outside of this state. I think Democrats would call that dark money, which they used to dislike. Right, $2 million gone into Fair Vote alone. You see the Fair Vote warriors are here. We don't hear this isn't a process that has achieved any of those goals. You look at, I think last time you brought in a congresswoman from Alaska. Took them 22 days to determine the winner of a congressional race in Alaska. All across the state we see these things, or all across the country. I think the most recent one out of DC Democrats talked about it was bad. It hadn't worked out the way they intended. It's confusing. It's difficult to administer from the perspective of how do we go out and ensure that it's transparent, clear, trustworthy, to do hand counts in a timely manner that somebody understands where their vote actually went. When you talk about participation, today in our plurality system, either win or lose, you know where your vote went. You look at the other pieces of the exhausted votes all over the place. Huge numbers of exhausted votes occur. I think in a couple examples, just most recent ones, look is it seemed proper in Portland, Maine, a 10-seat race. That one of the eventual winners, where there was 4, it was an at-large for 4 seats. The eventual winner had 4% on the initial vote. Those things are confusing, and what we haven't heard is citizens screaming for this, except for citizens that were brought forth and led by this entity, Fair Vote, and all of the partners and all the I'm surprised they're not testifying today, because I love the nonpartisan, nonprofit, doesn't appear to be filled with diverse opinions, but being led and being pushed in our local entities that this is somehow better. These things are not improving our process at all. I would argue, look at St. Paul, Minneapolis. Look at the outcomes since that voting process has been installed. I did see I appreciate you including the reference to Minnetonka, where local residents actually wanted to remove, and they had a pretty good groundswell, but when they're outfunded by the Fair Vote advocates, again, by outstate money to defeat what was deemed a local issue, it certainly doesn't seem local. The opposition appeared to be local, and to be overspent and outfunded is difficult for the average person in the average community to deal with these issues. There's no groundswell of people around the state asking for this in our districts all around the place, except for where they're targeted to implement these types of voting systems. So, Senator Morrison, we could go on and on and on. I won't today for everybody's benefit. I don't support it, and you know the reasons why. This isn't a voting system that builds trust and transparency and accountability in our elections. And frankly, I don't think the results where it's been put in place have delivered great outcomes from the performance of those elected through the process. So I'm against it. Vote no. Thank you.
Senator Lang.
Madam Chair, I'm just looking for the route to the bill.
The bill would be laid over for possible inclusion. Seeing no further questions, Senate File 3868. Senator Morrison, did you have any final comments?
Madam Chair and members, thank you for considering the bill. I would say just that there is actually a groundswell of interest in ranked choice voting. I have a whole list of communities across the state. And I also would add that dark money is flowing actually to stop ranked choice voting from continuing. So Senator Correa and I disagree, but I think it's important for people to know that there is a lot of, there is actually a groundswell of interest in ranked choice voting. Thank you for your consideration.
I've heard interest in my community as well. With that, Senate File 38, Senator Dziedzic. She's already up. Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Morrison, yeah, I like this about as much as Senator Coran does, not very much. This is a bad bill, but I want to make certain that what recourse do people in a community have to, and I am reading this section on, or the paragraph on 5.20 through 5.22, it says it can be repealed by the same way that it was adopted. So how would it be adopted by ballot question? Would a city council put it on the ballot and it would be adopted, or would there be a petition? There's not a petition process to put it on the ballot. Is there a reverse referendum option for the voters to bring forward a petition, form a reverse referendum, and put it on the ballot to repeal it? How does that happen?
Senator Morrison, thank you for sitting back down after we had final questions and taking this question.
Madam Chair and Senator Dziedzic, that's exactly what happened in Minnetonka. The voters asked for another referendum. Some voters did, and overwhelmingly the citizens of Minnetonka voted to continue ranked choice voting.
Thank you, Senator Morrison.
So Madam Chair and Senator Morrison, I mean, that is not spelled out in the bill. Exactly. It just says by the same method. It doesn't, I think there's room for more mechanical how-to under that section of the bill. That's all I'd offer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dziedzic. Senate File 3868 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Morrison. Up next is Senate File 5012, Senator Cwodzinski, if you would please step forward with your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a testifier or two. I think one or two. Anyways, one. Okay.
Please proceed at your convenience.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This is sections 1, 2, and 3 in this bill are technical fixes that I think the testifier will probably address and much more eloquently than I can. But section 4, I'm calling the Senator Dziedzic honorary. It'll be the last gasp of where the notary seal, the state seal, will probably end up being on an official document a few years out after after May 11th. We'll still see the old seal on our notary stamps. So anyways, with that said, that's the bill.
Ms. Freeman, always good to see you. Please proceed. State your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair, and Senator Cwodzinski, Nicole Freeman, the Office of the Secretary of State. So Senate File 5012 is a technical bill related to notaries and their registration with our office's Business Services Division. So specifically, it aligns the process for holding authorizations that Minnesota notaries can seek to perform their duties, both the electronic notarization and the remote online notarization. It aligns these processes by removing additional paperwork that a notary who holds an electronic notarization is currently required to file each time they renew their commission. The bill also clarifies that a valid notary stamp is not deficient because an element of the stamp has been changed after the stamp was issued. And as the letters in your packet indicate, the clarification is really important to ensure that a valid notary stamp is not called into question if it is used to notarize a document. So I'm happy to go through section by section if that is helpful. Otherwise, we can move to Senator questions.
We'll proceed with questions. I think if someone needs that breakdown, they can ask for it. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, Senate File 5012 is laid over for possible inclusion. Excellent job, you two. This is the shortest one we've had so far today.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
And our final item on the agenda is Senate File 4719, Senator Dibble. I just saw him. Senator Dibble, so good to see you. Please proceed with your bill, which is Senate File 4719, at your convenience.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to present Senate File 4719. I'd also like to thank my co-authors, Senators Rest, Hoffman, and Pa. Very quickly, by way of quick overview, I don't know if my testifiers are still, come on down. I will just give a very brief overview, and then we have a few folks who can testify more eloquently to the aspiration and purpose of Senate File 4719. But very quickly, what it seeks to do is to provide both a process for discussion, a convening, and a way to prioritize resources that would be intended to help make sure that all the aspirations that we have, all the multiple benefits that would accrue from an investment, a major infrastructure investment represented by light rail transit, or major bus rapid transit, likely to be light rail transit, up through North Minneapolis and to the northwest suburbs, will have the benefits that we do hope. Of course, major investments like this result in some really positive investment on the private side, on the commercial side, create access and mobility for lots of folks, represent the kind of fixed in place infrastructure that allows for housing and other forms of commercial and real estate development and all kinds of vibrancy. It has also the potential for a downside. First of all, from the construction phase, puts a tremendous amount of pressure on any community that threatens the viability and vitality of the economics of that area, the quality of life, and also has the effect, of course, of creating the kind of values that drive people out who are already there, who then subsequently, of course, lose their social connections, their institutional connections, all the social fabric, all of the things that have made that community great for them for a long time get erased, and then we have an unintended downside negative consequence. So the aspiration is to do anti-displacement work, put some resources in place around supporting businesses, supporting institutions, supporting culture, supporting people, supporting communities, so that they can continue to thrive even while these new investments create new opportunities in that area. So with that, Madam Chair, I should
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, that there is an A3 amendment.
Would you care to describe the amendment?
So the A3, and I'll ask Ms. White to help me, but I think what it basically does is it takes and places into session law what would previously have been codified, because this is a time-limited program, so more appropriately would be in session law versus being codified.
Thank you. Senator Carlson offers the A3 amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is adopted. And we'll go to your testifiers.
Great.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
if you could state your name for the record and proceed.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is C. Terrence Anderson, Director of Community-Based Research at the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs, or CURA, at the University of Minnesota. We were contracted by Hennepin County and the Met Council in 2020-22 to conduct an anti-displacement study which undergirds the recommendations that are supported in Senate File 4719. We worked with community, business owners, residents, as well as not elected officials, but folks from government from each of the cities along the line in order to study what anti-displacement might look like as a result of the construction, planning, and implementation of the Blue Line extension, should that come to be. We worked and studied the existing light rail lines, including the existing green line, the existing blue line, the green line extension, to see effects that might occur within community. We looked around the country about different practices around light rail development that might help ensure that the benefits of the blue line extension primarily benefit the existing residents around the blue line extension corridor. Ultimately, our work sought to contextualize displacement in the Twin Cities through research, center community by creating a work group that have elevated their voices and capacity to understand this question and make recommendations, and ultimately to make those recommendations that would ensure those benefits primarily benefit the existing blue line extension corridors. That work culminated in a report that recommended 17 different policies and investments that might occur that will support housing, businesses, residents, and culture along the corridor. That's reflected in ultimately what this work would be funded by Senate File 4719. And one of the things I think to note along the structure of the existing group that would be made out of this pot of money should reflect similarly government, residents, and businesses along the corridor and ensure that the recommendations are sort of implemented at their highest and best fashion. We think ultimately our work was to unite those three entities to have a common view about what should occur here. We think we achieved that goal in the context of our recommendations of the report that support the Senate file. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Perez?
Thank
You
you.
could please state your name.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Ricardo Perez. I use he, him pronouns. I am a coalition organizer with the Alliance for Metropolitan Stability, and I help staff the Blue Line Coalition. So the Blue Line Coalition for the past 10 years has followed the development of the Blue Line Extension project. We are a team of 12 organizations that serve constituencies that work, go to school, live in the corridor of Blue Line Extension project. And for the past 10 years, we've been following the development to ensure that our communities are not left behind in this opportunity, but rather that we use this investment as a way to help us thrive as a result of this smart investment and policy application. For us, Blue Line Extension project is not about a train, but it's about people. And we strongly believe that we need this anti-displacement fund, and we need this board to be composed of a majority of community members to ensure that our recommendations continue to move forward. For us, anti-displacement is about abundance. It's about having a collective plan that intentionally can help us change the known outcomes when you build a train through our neighborhoods. This fund and this opportunity can help us move from being renters to becoming owners for our places of residency or small businesses. It can help increase the number of homeowners across the corridor, and it can help our businesses thrive. Our anti-displacement journey has led us to here today, and our coalition believes that, again, this board and this investment is completely necessary for us to show the nation, to show the state, how do we build back better? How do we apply one Minnesota mentality into how we build these projects? So thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. And Commissioner Lundy? When you're settled, if you could state your name for the record, please.
My name is Jeff Lundy, District 1 Commissioner for Hennepin County. Just wanted to say, as a recovering mayor of Brooklyn Park, I appreciated the nuanced discussion that you all had on zoning and approvals.
And I'm glad I'm not a mayor to have to go through that. But frankly, I just want to take a little bit of your time and just say, appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. There is a growing realization countrywide that projects, road projects, transit projects have displacement effects, whether it's urban, suburban, or rural. People are displaced. They may be compensated, but they're displaced, and sometimes the community is displaced. So while people may get money, they find themselves without a place to go. They leave the community. And so what this project and this bill is really realization that we can do things differently. This is project and this effort on anti-displacement has been recognized nationally by the FTA and the White House as a way to do things differently, where we keep the people who are supposed to benefit from the project in the community. This bill will help require that, help bring funding to that, and the funding will have to be matched. So whether it's federal, local, or philanthropic funding, whether it's from the county, we're not looking just for help. We're looking to help with you all for the community. And we believe there's many ways that we can do this by helping keeping businesses in place, by keeping people in their community that they've lived for many, many decades, and also maybe help people purchase their homes. Maybe the businesses can stop leasing, they can purchase the place that they will have their operations at. And so we're trying our best to learn from the past and make for a better future. And we believe that this project has the benefits that this area has long deserved and is long overdue. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anything further from the author before we ask questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What brings us, of course, to the State and Local Government Committee is Section 2, the board that is established, its membership, and, of course, its duties and authorities.
Thank you for that reminder to narrow our scope. Members, are there any questions? Senator Curran.
Madam Chair, Senator Dibble, another 15-member board? A commission?
Yes, I know. I'm not going to be on it, though.
Senator
I'm glad. The challenge, I see it in the $10 million of general fund dollars you plan to put into it. But don't we already have? I mean, these are the very areas that are targeted by dozens of nonprofits, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions overall, into a wide variety of entities to address these same issues. So I get it, the rail is a new need, but isn't just replicating more and more of the same of what we've done in the past?
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Curran, for the question. I guess that would be a matter of perspective. I think the power of this entity, if you look at those who will be seated at the table, there are folks from the community working, directly in conversation and collaboration with the elected representatives of the area, with a real focus on not replicating the mistakes of displacement that have been expressed in the past. So I think it's different in the sense that it doesn't simply accept as a priori given and good that driving up the value of housing and filling in of previously dilapidated structures with nice new gleaming structures is going to confer all benefit. It's recognizing that there's downside and that a lot of work needs to be done that's connected together around, if you look at, some of the kinds of systems and dynamics that need to be connected, that preservation of cultural heritage is connected to improving a business climate, is connected to the development of spaces for small businesses, so that all that conversation is being had in context, and it's all being connected together, and being very intentional. So I don't think so. And also, there's a reason why North Minneapolis and that corridor hasn't been as thriving as we would have hoped, and that's because of. And if you go to these places, you see, there's just a lot of things missing from those neighborhoods that we just take for granted in neighborhoods like mine, in southwest Minneapolis. And so whether or not you feel like more of this, a lot of this has been done in those areas, something hasn't taken hold in those areas. So you can go, there's not, I remember having a conversation with a member of a community. They don't have like 5Ks, and they don't have, many blocks. They don't have restaurants and things like, there's just a lot of that stuff, those things that create a sense of place and connection. So a lot of that is going to happen because of this investment, but it might have the danger of then not benefiting those who are already there.
Madam Chair.
Senator Coran?
Senator Dibble, you just described building a community, right? And there's a lot of different factors in it. But just because we're going to throw a bunch of state money at it doesn't mean it's suddenly going to be we've created a community and a festival, and right, all of those things occur. It takes community ownership, right, and participation. And I just looked through the goals. They're pretty broad, but as it's stated, to not displace people, right, and that's a goal for everything. But then at the same time, it's to stop gentrification, which is moving into home ownership, business ownership, which would ultimately then be gentrification, but hopefully by the people who live there, right, without the displacement. So to me, it's great conflict how we weave through that process. But we already have layers of government entities already covering every one of these districts, and so I always get concerned. One, another 15-member board, unelected, in addition to the 150 we already have, and really, how is it materially going to make a difference on the ground? Because we already have so many of these targeting the same thing. So that's where I have the concern, and we all want it to work, right? But I don't want another 15-member board, Senator Dibble. So thank you.
Senator, do you have a comment? Senator Dziedzic.
I respect Senator Kranz's perspective.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Dziedzic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Dibble, you include the legislative appointments by the majority in each house, 2 of them in each, on the 15-member board, the famous 15-member board. Do you want Republicans to be appointing them when we come into control? I'm wondering if you thought about that, maybe having it be 1 from each caucus as it normally is.
Senator Dibble.
Madam Chair, I hadn't given it a lot of thought. I'm optimistic that we're in the permanent state that we're going to be in. So it's a good question, and I hadn't given it close consideration. I don't know, Senator Dziedzic, are you going to appoint good people when you're in a position to do so? This.
No, Senator Dibble, but you might not want me appointing something dealing with North Minneapolis. It might be somebody from, Millville or something that I appoint that they'll have a different idea.
I believe the bill says they have to live in the corridor represented. So, Senator Dibble.
Madam Chair, I'm not nimble enough to fashion a change. Just so everyone knows, that this, if this committee feels like this is a worthy idea and gives it their imprimatur, their blessing, their vote, ultimately it's going to more likely than not end up in the transportation finance omnibus, where I can take a look at that. Is it the pro-DRAS or anti-DRAS amendment? I'm not sure. We'll see.
So the intention today is to lay this over for possible inclusion, and then, as you said, from there it might end up in transportation. Speaking of which, seeing no further questions, Senate File 704719 is, as amended, is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
And that concludes our business for today. We will attempt to meet on Thursday, depending on how the floor goes. If not, be prepared for a possible Friday afternoon meeting. With that, we are adjourned.